is 9:30 on a Thursday night, and you are tuned into Beltway Radio and Beyond, which can mean one and only thing. I have to work the belt tonight by myself. This is ChipChat. I'm Chip. Who are you, Tez?
You just told him, buddy. Sorry, man.
Yeah, I got to do a lot more work. You know, I already have to write this whole damn show.
You do?
Including the Tez Talk.
Yeah.
And now I got to work the bell by myself. This is a lot. Thank God Brian's here. At least he cares about this show. No, you better not.
Oh, did he just say he quits? I hope not.
We're not paying him.
Yeah.
All right.
Shout out to peppercorns.
Right. No peppercorns. This is a special edition of ChipChat because today's opening day.
Yes.
So, happy opening day to all those who celebrate. It's the only day that can bring hope to the people of Baltimore, which it definitely did. And and so that felt pretty good, which we're going to address. But because it's opening day, we have our favorite baseball expert with us for the show. Dan Formosa is here. It's radio, Dan, so sometimes you got to say stuff instead of just wave at him.
Hello, everyone. Happy to be here.
He's also a big star on the YouTubes, so he's used to everybody watching him.
Yeah, no one watches us and 3 people listen.
Yeah, that's true. 7. But those Russian interns are back on the case.
They are back on because of you.
Speaking of listeners, viewers, and all of that stuff, it's just worth mentioning that we're, a year or so since my emergence as a star of the hip-hop video scene. And
I'm so glad he's laughing like that because what?
The video is up to 166,000 views. So we've added 30,000 views since my last count. And I'm quite certain that once people discover the connection to the chip hop, it's only going to grow. Brian, you ready for the break?
I should have never, ever said that. I'm so sorry. I apologize to many people for that because many people are saying it now.
Yeah, many people are saying. All right. Also, we're going to – Ronna Romney needs to get a new job. Cops are doing some silly stuff. We're going to make Dan play Florida or Nah.
Oh, awesome.
It'd be kind of interesting. He did get the script, but hopefully he abided by the line that says, Dan, don't read this part.
I did not read that part. Actually, I read that line.
Yeah.
I got that far.
And told you to stop.
Yeah, I do not go on. Yeah.
See?
Me either.
Follow the rules.
Me either.
As a guy who writes books about rules, he better be good at following them.
I did not read it either, Chip. So
yeah, I'm shocked. Did you read your Tez Talk? Because you do have to make a choice there about which. It's a choose your own adventure Tez Talk.
Choose your own adventure. I see Supreme. I know some Supreme Court stuff that was in there, so I probably go there.
That's one choice, or I get to tell you this weird story about something that happened to me at lunch.
Oh man, that might be better actually.
Or we could do both. I purposefully wrote a short show, figuring we'd have a lot to talk about.
Of course, we do.
I want to hear lunch thing.
Okay, the lunch story is going to win. Then we'll do both. We'll do the lunch story, and then we'll do the SCOTUS story.
That's not a win. That means that someone gets a participation trophy.
Mark it. Oh, breaking news. Clemson won?
Yes.
Yes.
They won 77-72 over the second-ranked Arizona.
I picked New Mexico in that bracket and to win one more game, so this helps me tremendously. I don't like anything about Clemson, especially that hidden P that's somewhere in that word, even though it's not in the spelling. But that helps me tremendously. Thank you. Way to go, Brian.
Yeah.
What was the score?
On the other bracket, the other side, UConn is winning 77-50 with less than 3 minutes left in the second half.
I'm shocked. What Dan wanted to know what was the final score on the Clemson game?
Oh, again, it was 77-72 Clemson over Arizona.
Woohoo!
Wow. All right.
So Tiger defeats a Wildcat. Y'all remember the all Wildcat Final Four in the 90s?
Yeah.
Oh, yes. That is wild. That's a hell of a callback.
Wild.
It was wild.
I
Way
don't
to go,
remember.
Tez.
Yeah, I don't remember the 90s.
Way to go, Dan. You had a better 90s than we did. All right. In honor of that, then, do you have a word? Don't say a word, Dan. If you've got a word, you're going to play now.
Do I? Let me think of a word.
I've got a word.
Yeah, I got a word.
Okay. So, Dan, the way this works is you just pick a word, any word, doesn't matter. A long time ago, when Larry and I were doing the show, we said, grab some buds, it's Miller time. And then like a week later, InBev merged with SAB Miller. And we were like, oh yeah, we caused that. So we've been trying to smash two things together ever since. And this is how we do it. So we've been relatively unsuccessful since, but you know, one out of, I don't know, how many episodes have we done in this show? Several hundred. It's a pretty good ratio. So we'll try again.
Is there a theme, or you just come up with random words?
Random words.
Random words.
Yeah. Sometimes it ends up being a theme, but you know, that's the fun of it. So, okay. So do you have your word?
I picked one. Yeah.
Okay.
Is it
So
secret? Do we keep it secret?
Well, when I
Yep.
say, I'm going to say, sit back, grab some, and then Dan, you're going to say your word, and then Tez, you're going to say your word, and then I'm going to say my word, and then we're going to hit the break. Is everybody ready?
All right.
I'm ready.
Okay. So sit back, grab some.
Aardvark.
Bulks.
Engineer time. You're listening to the best show, the only show, Chip Chat, on Beltway Radio and beyond.
Sweeps.
All right, welcome back to Chip Chat here on Beltway Radio and beyond. I'm Chip, with me is Tez.
What's poppin', y'all?
Hanging out with us is Dan Formosa.
Happy to be here again.
Okay, so you know, we live in the DC metro area, and obviously that kind of includes Baltimore.
Can we even stop? At one point in my life, this used to be the DC Baltimore area. There was a time. That was a time.
Bureau considers it one region, so that's right.
And Baltimore realized we said fuck DC.
Yeah. Okay.
Wow. Whoa. Wow. That's
Take it easy.
Tough town.
George's.
Wow. That's the type of vitriol that he comes out the gate with.
I'm not lying. That's how they feel. They do not like DC.
Well,
I think no. See, I think it was the flip because we're not going here. We cannot do that show today. Anyways, we're not doing that show with you. No way in hell. Anyways, moving on.
This is about solidarity. I even wore Maryland socks this week. Okay, like that's hard for me as a Virginian. But I did it.
Don't you think it's odd when cities hate each other?
Very weird.
No, that's how sports works.
Nations too.
That's right.
Also how sports works. Listen, if the English and the French didn't hate each other so damn much, we'd still be talking British.
I'm still drinking tea.
Well, yeah.
Hey, you're still speaking English.
American.
Not me. I'm from New Jersey.
Yeah.
It's a bell. That's a bell. Hit the bell.
All right. Anyway,
We always do this. We always do this when there's a sad topic. We veer away.
We all find a way
always
to
do
not
this.
talk about it.
It's so crazy every time.
All right, but we have to talk about it. So here's what happened. There was I mean, I honestly, I woke up in the morning and I saw a post from one of my friends. Shout out to RT. He said the Key Bridge fell down in Baltimore, and I was like, it's not April Fool's Day. And then I had to go back and delete my response to him because I thought he was kidding. And then I looked and I was like, oh no, he's not kidding. So here's what happened. There's a ship named the Dali. It's flying a Singaporean flag. It was working on it's owned by some big international shipping conglomerate. It was on a commission from Maersk, moving a bunch of stuff. It was actually moving a bunch of hazardous waste. Some of it was and I don't know what else, but it is moving it from Baltimore. It's going to Sri Lanka. The ship was crewed by a bunch of people, mostly from India. So it sort of highlights the international aspect of shipping around the world. It's over 980 feet long. It weighs empty 95,000 tons. So, and it was carrying 11 billion tons worth of extra stuff. So got a lot of mass. As per usual, the tugs pulled it out of its berth and towed it into the channel and got it started on its way. The harbor pilot was aboard the vessel at the time that it struck the bridge pier. The ship had gotten to Baltimore just a few days ago. It had been in Norfolk, dropped off some stuff, and then it was going up to Baltimore, and it picked up some stuff and was going to go to Sri Lanka, like we said. Baltimore is a huge port. Depending on who you're listening to or in what year you're counting stuff, it's like 11th in tonnage and 9th in value of the 36 major U.S. ports. Some folks count it as a little lower down the list, but it's also the number one port for auto imports and exports, both, because it has the facilities for that. We'll talk about that a little bit more later. There's 6 people presumed dead in this incident. There's at least 2 in the hospital. We have to take a detour from our usual skepticism of the police to say something very positive about them, which is that they responded to the Mayday call from the ship. The interagency cooperation was tremendous, which we're going to talk about. That saved many, many lives. You can't even really discuss that without giving them the credit. So that's the sort of basic details. Other things to mention, Baltimore's a bulk port. They move a lot of raw materials, things like coal and commodities. And then also, like I said, it's the number one for auto imports and exports. So if you have bought a car from Europe, there's a pretty good bet that it came in through Baltimore and probably got its steering wheel fixed in Baltimore too, because, the Europeans make their steering wheels on the wrong side of the car. So if you bought a Jag, it comes into Baltimore and they make it proper Jaguar and then give it to you in America. And if you built a Mazda, Jaguar, I think is how your folks say it there. And then if you built a car in the United States and were shipping it to, say, I don't know, France or whatever, then it probably went to Baltimore and got put on a ship and sent to France. So like that's the kind of like baseline deal. The other thing that we really do need to talk about in part of this is the wild conspiracies that it took like 0.3 seconds for the internet to be full of, some of which seemed like they were making fun of people who believe in conspiracies, but nonetheless were picked up by Fox News and all of these other conspiracy nutcase places, including that the bridge was blown up or that, ships without power can somehow steer. I don't know how they think that happens. Anyway,
Do we have to entertain this? I mean, there's a clear
No,
video.
I don't want to talk about the conspiracy. I don't want to say what they are. I just want to like poke a hole in it to say, first of all, this is not a confusing question about what happened. What happened is very clear. You had a ship that was moving under its own power. Going forward, I'm quite sure they're going to be towed past this point in the channel to prevent similar things from happening. But there was a ship moving under its own power. It's very heavy, and it was moving relatively quickly along a route that thousands of ships take every month, and it's kind of no big deal. And it lost power, and the backup power came on, but it wasn't sufficient, and it wasn't fast enough to move the ship and change its course before it drifted into a horrific collision with the bridge.
They dropped the anchor as well.
They did everything they could to try to stop this. It's also important to understand that this is the third longest span of this type of bridge in the world. It has to have only those 2 points so that it's wide enough to allow the ships to pass under it. Like, that's another thing that people seem to be purposefully misunderstanding. If you take out one side of the bridge, it's not some mystery that it collapsed. It's not, oh no, there must have been explosives. No, it's if you are two sides of a thing holding it up and then one side isn't there and the whole thing falls down. This is the clearest cut example of like a terrible accident you could possibly imagine. But for about half the country, it can't be that. So that's the background. I don't know. What do y'all think about this this bridge going down?
Well, it took about 2 minutes from the time that they lost power to hit the bridge. Is that right? It was pretty quick, right?
Something like that. I mean, they're moving like 8 or 9
under
knots.
2 minutes, I think.
They're at a good clip though. I mean, that's fast.
Yeah.
What was the speed? Do you know?
All right. It was
You said somewhere between 8 and 9 knots.
Yeah.
Which is like knots are roughly what 1.6 miles an hour or something like that. So
and it's a boat, right? It's a ship, right? That's
a ship that weighs 1 billion tons moving at like 25 miles an hour. It's not small. You know, force is mass times acceleration. You got a literal metric shit ton of mass,
right?
Moving at any miles an hour.
Right. It's too much.
Yeah. Well, you know, here's my calculation because, you know, I did some homework for 5 minutes, knowing that we're going to talk about this. And it's the equivalent of 50,000 cars.
There you go.
The weight of that ship is the equivalent. Actually, it's the equivalent of 50,000 cars empty when the ship is empty.
Yeah, when it's empty.
Yes. So getting hit
the 11 billion tons of whatever it was carrying.
Yeah, getting hit by 50,000 cars at 25 miles an hour is not insignificant. I mean, I can't even imagine 50,000 cars, but that's a lot of cars. I can't believe the anchor would even stop it that fast. I mean, anchor doesn't just like, you know, stop on a dime. It has to catch, but I'm sure it takes time to even deploy the anchor. So it was a relatively slow speed crash. But the amount of weight certainly far ahead made up for it.
Yeah, speed isn't always the determinant factor. I mean, most of us are sort of mostly familiar with car crashes where the weight of the car is, you know, pretty small. The weight of a person is pretty small. We kind of understand that. And so the higher the speed, of course, the greater the force of the impact. But, you know, the other side of that equation still matters, right? It's mass times acceleration. You increase the mass, the acceleration doesn't have to be much to get that F number to be huge. And then if you start adding in, you know, is force times distance is work, like, you know, this thing moves several meters or you know, 100 feet or something like that. That's, if you turn that into horsepower or wattage or something that you can understand, it's tremendous. The amount of energy being imparted against this pier of this bridge is tremendous. and it was never gonna withstand that. I mean, nothing was gonna withstand that.
I think there was some interesting. I think Marketplace did. Obviously, we're always a reference to Marketplace.
Of course,
I thought they did some really good reporting on this in a few areas. I think one, just when that bridge is built, right? I think it's in like 73. I think the bridge is built.
Completed in 77.
77. Okay, they like cargo ships weren't that big.
No,
where we're at now, right, is just a different all right. And if you think about how we are like intertwined with the globe, especially with shipping and how things are built, to your point earlier as you start this segment, like the ships are just so much bigger now. And I just thought that was really interesting because people will say, oh, there's a bridge, right? And these bridges are marvels at the time they're built, but as we continue on and as we want to consume more, like things change. And like at that slow rate of speed, I guess comparatively, how big that ship was, I mean, that bridge didn't stand a chance. I thought the other thing that was interesting as well that they mentioned on was the victim specifically, right? And I mean, that's hell, man. Like you're working on you're filling potholes in the middle of the night, and the bridge collapsed on you. They found 2 victims inside their truck at the bottom of the river. I mean, that's just how. And I think a point they made, and we talk about a lot of immigrant workers on this show, right?
They're all Latino men.
Yeah, they're all Latino men. And like, there's a crazy stat that like Latino men or folks coming from Central and South America are more likely to die on the job than anybody else. And like to die like this, to be like, I don't know, man. That joint hits that's heavy, bro.
Well, bridges, obviously, let's state the obvious, they're not designed to hold weight or to resist any forces from the side.
Right.
They are super lightweight, even though it's tons and tons of steel, but it's truss work. It's truss work. It's as light as possible. A bridge designer's role is to make a bridge as light as possible. A really classic engineering project, if you're in engineering school, is to, and I've done this too in my design program, take a 2x4 piece of wood and make a bridge out of it.
Right.
And literally take a 2x4 and just cut it up and just make those truss rods and see how much weight your bridge is going to hold. And the test among everyone in the class is to see how much gravity induced weight. No one hits it from the side. Right? So engineers are trained to build bridges and design bridges, and rightly so, because the weight is coming from the top. It's not expected to be coming from the side. Now that being said,
they're not fortification. They're not buttressed against a front end collision. Like that's not what they're for.
No. Now I have seen, and I've got to pay a lot more attention now when I pass bridges. I have seen these wedges. So at the base of the pylons in the water, there are these wedges, like pointed wedges, so that if a boat gets close, it at least deflects the boat. It's not an impact. It's going to push the boat to one side or the other. So it's going to deflect that weight. It's going to deflect that impact. I didn't see that on this bridge, and even don't know if it would help with 50,000 cars. But it is a design intended to avoid those sort of side impacts.
So we're probably going to talk about that a little later, but we may as well just mention it now that there are structures that are referred to as dolphins that are these sort of meant to be obstructions out ahead of a bridge pier, that if something is moving towards those pylons or supports, that it would hit those and either deflect or run aground on them or something like that to absorb some of the impact. You could think of them as like maybe breakwaters before a seawall or something like that, that they're there to take the energy, they're to be destroyed or to cause a problem. The Chesapeake Bay, a lot of people around the world, a lot around the country probably don't know this. The Chesapeake Bay is a very shallow waterway. It's so shallow that the ships that come up it couldn't possibly navigate this estuary if it wasn't being constantly dredged out. So the channel that this ship was passing through is got a 50-foot draft, which is not a lot. Not a lot. You're talking about these Panamax ships that are used to being able to operate in 100-foot draft or whatever. so there's a limited number of ships that can make it up Chesapeake Bay. It has to be dredged out. So effectively, without building structures for it, the narrowness of the channel serves to protect some of those structures that are at the edges of the channel. So, so as to think of that, if you could span this thing far enough that you're outside the dredge point of the channel, you didn't have to worry about a ship hitting it because it would run aground before it would hit that. And in 1977, a 1.2 mile span was probably only going to be made of this kind of, truss work, steel girder structure. But now we've got cable stay and suspension type systems that can span this easily, and maybe could even have their supports be so close to land that you would never have to worry about this particular kind of a failure being an issue again. And, in the interest of speed and getting this connection point back up and running, number one, you got to get the channel clear so that the port can operate. And number two, you got to get building so that I-95 can operate. Really the thing to do, and Dan, you're the engineer, so you could correct me if I'm wrong, but is look around the country for something that spans a similar distance, a similar type of bridge, and basically cut and paste or copy and paste that design over that span, because you already know it works and you just got to modify, sort of what it sits on or whatever, and get it moving as fast as possible.
Yeah, what's always fascinated me is how they get the support under the water. How they pour the concrete or whatever they do to support those the structure under the water. And it's not easy to work down there or to do that. But they've been doing it for decades. But that's just one of those things that always fascinated me. How do they actually build a support at the bottom of the riverbed or even into the riverbed when it's all underwater?
Yeah. And over the years, of course, over the centuries, it's been different. Like the Brooklyn Bridge was built where they built like a casing around it and, pumped the water out and pumped air in, and everybody got the bends while they were down there digging and all that kind of stuff. And, sometimes they tow these things out and they sink them, and then they set them on the bottom, or they go down and they drill piles into the ground, or they can drill the piles from above. I mean, the Wilson Bridge, when they were rebuilding that, I don't know, Tez, if you could remember hearing the pile driver all night long, just sinking these piles into the bed of the Potomac all the way down to the bedrock, so that they could then pour the casings on top of that, so that they could support the pretension concrete over it. But it's going to be an engineering feat to do this, and it's not going to be quick.
Not at all.
And, even just towing the salvage equipment to the location, presuming that it's not already engaged in other things that are also super critical, like that can take days, weeks, maybe, even if it's off-site. There isn't that much of this stuff in existence in the world. You got to get it there, right? It could be up in Boston right now, dredging out the Charles, who knows? And now you got to get it you got to stop work there, disconnect everything, blah, 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 schlep it all the way down the coast, all the way back up the bay. Situation's fraught, and it's bad, and it's impacting a lot of people. It's going to impact even more people. What it isn't is a plot. And it's really like shocking to me. Ships can't steer if they don't have power. Like that's a very obvious thing. And people who say otherwise should have to try doing it, I guess. I mean, I don't know what else to tell you.
I don't want to entertain any of that. I think it will be rebuilt. I think what that timeline looks like. I mean, if it was done in five years, I think that would be incredible. I
Well,
think that would be
I
incredible. If
hope
it was
it's done that fast.
I think that's a stretch.
Right. They got it done in the first place in 5 years. I think it could be done if they can, like I said, copy and paste a plan. What I'm really interested in is to see who votes to appropriate the funding for this and who doesn't.
I want to believe that this is just night and day. Like, I don't think you'll see a huge. I want we want to build. There was a bipartisan infrastructure bill passed, right? I know there's different members, and I know it's different. It's a little bit different now, but still, I think Johnson puts this forward. I don't think you'll see that on this. I don't think. I get where you're going.
I don't know.
I don't think.
Let's ask Dan, who is in a state where Superstorm Sandy came through, and after New York, New Jersey, Massachusetts, Virginia, all of us had voted for Katrina relief, had voted to help all of those states in the Gulf. When it came to Superstorm Sandy, and New Jersey and New York needed help, and Virginia needed help, those Gulf states, they voted against it. Mississippi, their whole delegation, all the Republicans in Mississippi voted against it. Ted Cruz and all those people in Texas, they voted against it. And I know people in New Jersey don't hold grudges for long and don't get mad about things, and they're very easygoing about that kind of stuff. But like, I don't know, Dan, how did that feel when your fellow countrymen who you bailed out didn't bail you out?
There is so much anger or hostility, unwarranted. People just want to take sides. And I don't understand that, but they really want to take sides. They sort of revel in the idea that there's a division, and they revel in the idea that there's us and them. And that seems to be contagious. So by voting against a state, they win in some way, Oh, we have to win this. It is not, politicians are not innocent in this at all, obviously, right? They just battle each other. You can tell when I can't imagine that a politician, they would all agree. They have many, many, many different minds. Why do they all agree? Why doesn't somebody stand down and say, no, but let's think about it this way, or let's disagree? But no, they all have to go the party line. So it really is, the system's broken. The system's just really broken. It's not for the benefit of the country, as we all know.
Right.
It's a very broken system.
I mean, are they elected the governor, or are they elected to campaign to be reelected again? I think that, right, that's what we see a lot of the time with this. And I just don't believe when the vote comes up for the bridge. I think we can all get behind a bridge. And like, I don't remember this. This isn't the same on there, but it was the bridge that collapsed on, I think, 95 in Philadelphia, right? And obviously completely different, right? But even then, like, that folks went to work on that, and it was like, all right, we got to get this done. Like, I'm pretty sure federal money went into that. And again, a different time too, because federal money was kind of flowing to those type of projects, or starting to, when as I remember that bridge falling down. I think right now federal money is flowing through this country, and the federal government
is like specifically appropriated already. This is going to require an extra appropriation. And this is a thing that the Port of Baltimore and this bridge are critical to the entire country. I don't care if you live in one of the square states that never touches the ocean. This is still an important thing for you. If you don't support rebuilding this and helping it, what does that say about you?
It's going to get done, though.
I'm waiting for the no votes.
There will be no votes on it, but I think you'll see this pass with no. I don't see this.
It's going to pass. I'm just curious to see who those no votes are. And if they name this bridge the Elijah Cummings Memorial Bridge,
oh God,
which they very well could, what's going to, I don't want this to be true. I want you to be right, Tez, that this is an easy thing for everybody to get behind. It used to be the infrastructure was always that, and then it was infrastructure week for 6 years in a row. And like, I just want everybody to get this on your radar, to pay attention to who says they don't want to vote for repairs for this bridge or for this harbor. And just remember that. Just hold that in your mind and remember that. Because when Ted Cruz wants an escort through the damn airport, which he snuck into the last appropriations bill so that he could go to Cancun, which is all true. You can go read it. Think about what he's saying and why he might vote against Maryland having an operational port in Baltimore. And what does he mean by that? It just, I'm not saying it's going to happen. It is possible that Ted Cruz could get something right. Blind mice and blah, 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 broken clocks, something. Right. But just hold that in your mind and just be ready for it.
Does what's the name have a bridge named after him already? The Godfather of Baltimore, my man Nancy's father. What's his name? D'Alessandro. What's his name? Tommy. Yeah, does he have a bridge? Can you name it after
him? Yeah.
Hey, I am my house is on the Hudson River, about 10 miles north of Manhattan, and I have a view of the Tappan Zee Bridge.
Yes.
Which was actually rebuilt, but they knocked down the old one because it was designed to last 50 years. I don't know how they figured that out, but at the age of 60, they decided, it's time for a new bridge. So they actually dismantled. Well, they started building the new bridge next to it. And it was actually pretty fascinating to watch them build it, but it was also fascinating to watch them explode the old bridge.
Yes.
And it shook the house, and those pieces, you realize how massive it is when it falls into the water.
Yeah, we got to watch that too. So we got to see the video of the Tappan Zee Bridge here in DC. We had the same thing happen with the Wilson Bridge. We had the Woodrow Wilson Bridge, which is where the Beltway crosses the Potomac at the downstream crossing. This thing was built in 1833 or something like that. And it was 2 lanes wide, but they had 4 lanes painted on it. It was made exclusively of potholes and metal. And
it was
designed to destroy your car.
It was.
Also, it was a drawbridge that opened every 16 minutes, no matter what time of day it was, for whatever fucking reason. And so eventually they built a new Wilson Bridge right next to it, which is 18 lanes wide in each direction with
a lovely bridge.
And it's a wonderful
lovely bridge.
and it's smooth, and it rarely opens except when I'm trying to get home from radio, which is probably going to happen to me tonight. But once they had that completed, they did in fact blow up the old Wilson Bridge, and they told us when it was going to happen. And I went down to Old Town to go watch it happen and celebrate it in the destruction of my say enemy. Yet another enemy vanquished by my own perseverance, I should say.
I didn't know Tappan Zee Bridge is now officially named Mario Cuomo Bridge.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. You won't find a lot of people calling it that.
I feel like people are ready to fight over that.
Yeah. Well, all the people who don't call it that end up under the Mario Cuomo Bridge.
Yeah, right.
Then you can see Nyack, which is one of my favorite places in the world. So shout out to the good folks in Nyack.
All right.
There we go.
All right. Speaking of good people, let's talk about the good people of the district. They scored this major victory. So here's what happened.
Oh God.
There are 2 nominally professional sports teams called the
Brian killed this graphic here. This graphic is so good.
That's a great graphic.
This should be your primary photo.
So they play at this place called the MCI Center that's now called the Capital One something or other. I don't know what they call it.
The bank. We call it the bank.
Capital One Arena.
The bank.
It was called the MCI Center, which is what God intended.
It's not. That is a company that went out of business when it merged with Telecom. It's a terrible company for it to be
That's your problem. I'm not learning new things. So the MCI Center was
the Enron Center, basically.
Yeah. No, that's in Houston. So the MCI Center was built, and then the Capitals won Stanley Cup there, and the Bullets continued to be bad, and it is what it is. But the owner of those teams, who we're still workshopping names, I think we're going with Loser Leonsis. I think is currently the best company for him. He was like, screw this, I'm going to Virginia. I'm gonna build I want a new arena. And he called up his buddy who he used to work with, who we're calling Gullible Glenn. That's his Trump nickname, Gullible Glenn. And he goes, hey, build me a new stadium. And Glenn's like, oh, I got this great idea. It's called the Glen Dome. We're going to put it in Alexandria in this old rail yard, and I'm going to get the rest of the state to pay for it to the tune of $2 billion. And then they had this huge announcement without anything signed or paid for.
Or
and
they talked to Metro. They didn't talk to
this
Metro.
is happening. And the city of Alexandria, where this was gonna happen, was like, are you gonna like help us with like transit or anything? And they're like, yeah, well, maybe, not really, not at all, no. And so the people were like, I don't know about this. Like, we like the idea of the investment, but we would really like there to be like a second metro stop or whatever. They're like, nah, no dice. And then they went down to Richmond and they're like, yo, give us some money for this. And everybody downstate was like, exactly how does this help me? We need schools and firefighters. And they're like, this will pay for schools and firefighters. Just give us $2 billion.
Shout out to Miss Lucas down there.
So Louise Lucas and the rest of the Tidewater was like, no, we don't need this. It doesn't help us. We don't want to give you the money.
Don't you have a contract with the district, as she asked?
Yeah. So they, why are they still being called the Washington, whatever. So like they nixed it. Boom. Not in the budget. Gullible Glenn has to go back and like choose between new session to call them back in for them to vote it down again, or just be like, yo, take your L and go home, which he did, which forced loser Leonsis to go crawling back, hat in hand, to new mayor for life, Muriel Bowser.
Now we call I like easy now, but yeah, I feel she's contemplating a fourth term.
Tell me I'm wrong. And go, all right, I guess we'll take your deal and we'll stay here. And she's like, yeah, all right, we'll build you a little new stuff next to it and whatever. And she's smiling the whole way. I mean,
not new, like little new stuff. She's getting Ted gets a lot out of this deal down there. That he basically
does,
is.
But he doesn't get $2 billion. He gets $515 million, which is a lot less.
It's a lot less and reasonable in these times and where our city is at.
It's a reasonable thing.
It's a lot, actually. Let me be honest. It's a lot.
It's a lot. He's going to get his upgrades and all this stuff, but it also sort of makes it look like he was forced into this.
I don't know. We should go back and look at tapes when this first broke. And I thought Virginia would always nix this. There's no way in hell.
I think you did say that.
I always thought Virginia would come to save us, right? Which is very odd for someone from Washington to be like easy to say, Virginia come save us.
Robert E. Lee in the Commonwealth.
Well, he kind of helped save us by helping folks to run up across the line and join the Union. But I digress. But I thought that this would be nixed by Virginia. But the DC government kind of flipped in the gear. And I always thought it was a play to be like, hey, I'm about to go over here. Let me get you to move. Because if we really think about this, Muriel Bowser's been focused on one thing and one thing only, and that's the Commanders, right? That's all. That's that. And obviously the Nationals and the Learners have got some money as well, too. They got a decent amount of money. And he's been sitting around being like, Audi Field got built. Like, he's like, yo, what's going on over here? And he has an argument as well, too, that he has something that is in the center of the city.
Yes.
Like, it is in the center of the city.
Some folks to downtown.
I don't know if you remember Gallery Place before that thing was built.
I do.
It was a little bit, exactly. It was a little different down there before
it was
that.
Actually Chinatown.
Yeah, it was. It exactly was that. So I thought it was kind of like I'm gonna go ahead. I'm gonna go again flirt with Virginia. It kicked the city council in the gear. It kicked Muriel Bowser into like creating like actual like teams of people who are gonna focus on that area of the city. I thought it was a shitty way to go about it. But I understand like these are billionaires and billionaires want to build new toys. They want to take their toys and have great places to play with these toys. The renderings for that stadium in Potomac Yard were insane. I don't know.
Yeah, the other things that were insane was like their value parking spaces,
$75,
all this other kind of stuff.
Exactly. $400 night hotels.
First place.
Yeah, so I'm happy. I get to keep my shitty team down a couple metro stops away. I'm happy for that. They won 3 in a row up until the other night where they lost in overtime.
Yeah.
I mean the Caps could maybe sneak in the wild card, hopefully.
Trying.
So look, I mean, I
didn't see.
I hope though.
Oh, we lost.
They lost to the Leafs tonight.
Yeah, 5 games left. Well, Toronto's good. We're not.
They're good. But I think hopefully as well too, the fans, and I don't think I'm not saying the fans need to show up, but it would be nice for the fans, hopefully the fans go back into the stadium and seeing this like, oh, it could have all been gone like that. Maybe we go down there and support that team, but the team needs to be good as well too. I think the team needs to be better.
Part of this is that the council set this up or it's going to set this up so that Leonsis has to invest a bit more of his own money, which is the right way to do this.
Yes.
I don't like the idea that they were dangling state money as a way to bargain for other money from another jurisdiction. That does feel kind of shitty. And also, you're a billionaire. You can afford to invest in your team and in your stadium. Your predecessor, Abe Poland, definitely did. So
the market doesn't dictate that anywhere else, like maybe outside of the Rams stadium that the NFL built, right? Like there's nowhere else that it dictates that an owner builds their own stadium. It's always been this, and it's wrong.
But
I don't agree with it.
Is shifting. I think that there's a shift because people are sort of generally, and it fits on a bumper sticker, don't build stadiums for billionaires. Like that is a thing that people understand.
If that stadium left and went to Virginia, people have been up in arms and asking for Bowser to resign if it left.
Yeah, but now that she won this fight and she made Leonsis come back begging and got it, if you think she had big dick energy before, wait till she's got this. She's going to be swinging that Bullets and Capitals chain around, talking about, all right, so what are we doing with RFK here? What are we doing here? We got all this stuff sitting around here, federal government. Come on, what's up with this? It's.
Oh no, she's about to
be there till 2050.
Her legacy has been it'll be solidified once they build that new stadium on RFK, and it'll be. I mean, they passed a huge crime bill. There's a
Muriel Dome.
There's a lot that she's gonna run like. Yeah, she started strong, as most people would say. I would in this. Not that I agree with a lot of her policies.
Well, she also painted that street one time, so that was good.
Still painted.
Yeah. Do you think? Because everything in DC is named Marion Barry something.
Yeah.
Do you think that there will be a time when our kids think that everything is named Muriel Bowser something?
Yeah, I could see that. I could see the convention center one day being named that.
So, and then is it going to be you and me's job to sit on the porch and holler at everybody? It should have been Marion Barry something or other, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah, I mean, yes, in a sense. I mean, but to tell the story of the actual reign of Muriel Bowser, which again, I think has worked for many. There's a class of people in this city that it has worked very well for, right? It's very well for. I might even be in that class of people.
You are.
I am in that class. I might be in that. Look, I personally don't have many complaints. I could talk about many policies she's put in that work for me. But in candid, I voted for Robert White because I thought he might actually put more into folks who are better. Like, I'm okay. Maybe we would give more to folks who are not necessarily okay.
I think the DC Council should pass a law that requires every dog park to be named the Adrian Fenty Memorial Dog Park. In the entire city.
There's a lot of parks. We got a lot of parks with him. A lot of fresh basketball courts.
Yeah. All right. So here's what we're going to do. Now that we've solved both Baltimore's harbor crisis and DC's stadium crisis, we're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to have an interesting segment called Stupid Republican Tricks, which we've had several times before because it keeps happening. And it's very funny and it's good for radio. So we're going to take a break. You're listening to Chip Chat on Beltway Radio and beyond.
Sweeps.
Do you wanna go to the river? I know this spot so deep and green, with wild raspberries and apple trees and rocks to climb between, water like a washing machine. Do you wanna dance? Sometimes I think I try too hard. I trip on my shoes and I trip on my shirt, get caught on the dirt in the yard. Caught on the dirt in the yard, you show me understanding, patience and pleasure, time and attention, love without measure, love without measure. You're cooking dinner, it's getting around 10:30. I haven't smelled food so good since I don't know where and I don't know when. Where and I don't know. Stove light glows like a fire sitting on the kitchen floor. Just when I think I couldn't feel more, I feel a little more. I feel a little understanding, patience and pleasure, time and attention, love without measure, love without measure. There's a guy on the nape of my neck and he hangs out there all day. He quantifies my every thought and tells me not to play. He tells me not to play. We lay around for hours talking about childhood pain, mom and dad and past lives too. I can tell you anything. I can say.
All right, welcome back to Chip Chat here on Beltway Radio and beyond. I'm your host, Chip. With me is Tez, theoretically. There he is. And hanging out with us is in Formosa. Say hi.
I'm here. I am here. I'm here.
Okay. Tez is not here.
I am here.
Brian put him to sleep with whatever the hell that was.
I'm here. I'm here. I was confirming something in the book.
I haven't heard music that folk since I'm struggling.
Yeah.
Maybe you never heard it.
Reformed Jewish preschool.
I don't know. We traveled to West. I felt like we were in West Virginia with that one somewhere.
No, that's very Greenwich Village sort of. You know, where have all the flowers gone? Kind of. Oof. Anyway, don't play that again. All right, here's what we're
I got something better after that. Thing.
Oh, good. I hope it's Alex Jones.
Please. I thought Alex Jones was going to start singing over that. I was hoping for that.
All right, so now we're on to this segment called Stupid Republican Trick. So here's what happened. There's a person called Ronna Romney McDaniel who was she was made the head of the RNC. That's the Republican National Crisis. Is that what they call it now? I don't know. And she was made the head of that by Donald Trump, because that's how that works, is that when you become president, you get to choose the head of your respective party. And we are in a two-system party, so that's how that has to go. And so he chose Ronna Romney, and then she dropped the Romney because he told her that she wasn't a Romney anymore or he would kill her. And so then she was just Ronna McDaniel. And she ran the RNC for a long time, and her job was to lie. And every time lose. She lost so many elections that she started to become like Donald Trump, which is to say a loser. And so then she had lost enough elections that he was like, I don't know, you're losing a lot of elections. It couldn't possibly be me. It's got to be you. And she was like, no, I think it's you. And he was like, Many people are saying you're Romney. And then he fired her. And so then she was like, well, shit, I need a job. You may remember, thinking back to our neighborhood, right? Maryland had a governor. It had a Republican lieutenant governor called Michael Steele. You remember him?
I definitely remember him.
He was so.
Did he
Maryland,
give the response to the State of the Union one time?
Yeah, I think he did. And you know, I think he was he Ehrlich's guy?
Yeah, he was Ehrlich's
He was Ehrlich's lieutenant, right?
I thought he was the response to Obama.
That's exactly right. So after Obama was elected, the Republicans looked around for like, hey, do we have one of them? And they were like, oh, we've got one. And so they're like, hey, Mike, you're in charge now. And he was like, but I'm a Maryland Republican. And they're like, we know, but we'll take it. It's the best we can do. So he ran the RNC through like the first term of Obama. And then the rest of the Republicans were like, oh shit, I think he's black. And they were like,
remember though, after 2012, they said the whole plan was to diversify the party, right? That was the whole plan.
That was the big tent plan. Yeah, they were going to try to expand the party and try to get black folks to vote for Republicans. Apart from Brian, they have not succeeded. So
I don't know. Look, anyway, that's a different show for polling later.
They're like, Michael, you're out, right? And he was like, well, shit, now I got to get a job. And he wrote a book and then he, gave some speeches and stuff. But eventually he did get a job with the National Broadcasting Company, otherwise known as NBC.
Peacock.
And specifically with the Microsoft version of NBC, which is called MSNBC. And if you're old enough to remember,
that was huge when that came out.
All of those jokes landed. If you're not, go to bed.
MSNBC was huge when that came up. When that happened, that was huge.
I was like, what does Bill Gates need with a network?
It was the internet merging with news. It's a crazy thing that happened.
I remember being quite confused by what is this thing and why do we need it? I watch it 27 hours a day. So, all right. So Steele got a job on MSNBC. And then when Trump came along, it turned out that many Republicans got jobs on NBC, Nicole Wallace and all of these other people. And not only did it turn out that maybe they aren't really Republicans, but not only did they hated Donald Trump, but like, it turns out they also abandoned trickle-down economics and like became pro-choice and like started to believe in infrastructure and like all of these things that it was like, well, shit, they got a newspaper subscription and started reading, and then so the thing happened. So Ronna Romney was like, yo, I'm going to do that too. And she calls up NBC and she's like, hey, I'm the deposed head of the RNC. It's my turn for a job, right? And they're like, oh yeah, off you go and, get on the network. And then Chuck the Todd met the press.
He did.
And he was like, I don't know who to believe. I don't like this lady. I don't trust her. I don't know if she's saying what she's saying to try to keep a contract or not. And he tells Kristen Welker, who he gave his job to, he's like, our boss has put you in a bad spot. And I don't like it. And she was like, I don't like it either. And then every single reporter at NBC lined up to go, yeah, we don't trust this lady. And so then they did what, Tez?
She got fired.
You're fired. Like her boss likes to say.
I don't know if that's even good. Was she there long enough to get fired?
No, she's like a lettuce.
Yeah, right.
There for like 5 days.
Yeah,
how long was she? Did she actually start?
Yes,
I heard of her.
It was that Meet the Press interview. That was it.
That doesn't count. She didn't get. That's it. She was already scheduled for Meet the Press.
That's the story.
Yeah, she was already scheduled before she got the job. Like, I don't know. I don't know if you call her fired. I mean, this is like bullying. I don't know. I would say I'm not even going to be nuanced with this. I think this is bullying gone right.
Yes,
I think and because she's part of the Trump like apparat, man. Like, I don't look at Michael Steele. Like, to my knowledge, Michael Steele never denied like democracy.
No.
And this woman on multiple occasions, right, was just like, no, like the election was stolen. Biden is not the actual president. She did, I think, say on Meet the Press Environment that she believed that he wanted that, but
she said that at the time she was saying those things, she was working for the RNC and she had to, quote, take one for the team.
Oh, no.
And then she was now.
The team is democracy.
Her mind. Look, that is not how this works. Like, you don't get to go out there talking about unmaking the country and then come back on and be like, well, you know, I said all that stuff then, but that was just to keep that job. And then Chuck the Todd was right. He was like, yo, I'm not sure you're not saying that now just to keep this job. I don't know what to believe about you.
I mean, we already know that journalism is already, I mean, it's on life support, right? And we know that her former boss, when you call the media the enemy of the state and you drive that wedge for like I think, right, we're all waiting for Kim Mulkey's story to drop on with the Post, right? And
what is why everybody's sure that it's a Trump story, but no, everybody's sure it's a Trump story.
But regardless, she's already like, they all play the same playbook that the media is the enemy, no matter what. This is the same individual who played that story and he said the media is the enemy, yet you need a new check, right? You need a new check, right? And you went to NBC to cut you this new check. Now, NBC is at fault for even entertaining this shit.
Yeah,
because we've learned nothing, right? We've learned nothing about in the media about what we need to do to protect this shit. And this is kind of, it's almost like they're putting the sword to their own fucking neck, because when you do something like this, it's like, are people right about you're just doing this for clicks? It's not like you're not looking for the other side from her. Maybe Chris Christie.
Well, they want the quote unquote other side, but it's CBS hiring Mulvaney all over again. It's like, you know, there is a legitimate argument to be made that news organizations should have people who can present both sides, both the right and left of an issue. The problem is that what we now call the right, which I don't think really even constitutes the right,
not at all,
is not presenting another side of the issue. They're presenting this shouldn't exist. And so the number of Republicans who are left to be right, to split these words in several different directions, the number of voices who are still around to advocate for small government, low tax, heavy military, H.W. Eisenhower sort of republicanism are so few and far between that there's nobody for them to pick up. And I would point, before I know you've got something for this, the point I would make about this is there were a lot of those guys, you know, whether it's Conway or the other Lincoln Project types, but their opposition to Trump has opened up their understanding that some of those other ideas that they held about the government shouldn't exist in this place or taxes shouldn't impact rich people, they've come to understand that was also incorrect, and they've recanted on a lot of that. Some of these Lincoln Project guys have been openly coming out and writing these long books in some cases. We were wrong to support trickle-down economics. It was never a good idea. We were wrong to be anti-choice. It was never a good idea. We never meant this stuff. Now that we are examining it without the pressure of partisan, victory at stake, and we can take an honest look at it, this is bullshit, and we don't want any piece of it.
I think some of those individuals you look for, it feels like the Atlantic is kind of snapped up, but most of them. I think like of Tom Nichols is one. I think David Frum is one. I think there's still individuals that represent, like, I don't even say country club conservatives.
Or the Economist.
Yeah, or the Economist. I think there's still, they're out there.
But look, even Frum's out here talking about trickle-down economics was never a good idea. I'm sorry that I ever supported it.
Yeah, and I mean, he's a Bush speechwriter. So, like, I mean, like, I still think, I think some of them still believe that, but I think what's more important is that they believe in people voting, and they believe in the way I want to like push my ideological vision is through votes. Ronald McDaniel does not believe in that, or when it's time, like when it's time to go into an authoritarian government, she'd be easily swayed. Kellyanne Conway would be easily swayed to go just like my life isn't going to change.
Part of it.
Yeah, she is. Yeah. So
you know who the number one free agent is? There's two, but there's the number one. Do you know who she is?
Who?
Liz.
Oh, for free agent when you say to bring where?
Liz Cheney. If you're a news organization that wants a Republican voice that still wants to stop women from having rights and make the economy hard for people who don't have billions of dollars, she's your person. But she wants to do it by elections.
Yeah.
Liz Cheney wants to oppress women legally.
I have her book. You wouldn't know. I have her book.
You bought a Cheney book.
Crazy. If you'd have told me this in like 2003,
bro.
Like 2003, if you'd have told me, I don't have
the least likely thing I could have ever guessed about you.
I have the book. I'm gonna go grab it the next break to show. But yeah, I have that. I'm interested.
Number two is Kinzinger, and he's out here like openly applying for the job. He's like, yo, you want to talk to a Republican who wants there to be low taxes and no government? I'm your guy. I also want you to vote for that. Like, I'm not going to tell you the election was stolen. Like,
hell, Mitt Romney. He'll be one.
Yeah.
He'll be
He's
one.
Retiring soon too.
Yeah, he'll be one.
I think Mike Gallagher might be angling for that job since he's successfully quit the Senate just at the right time to cut MAGA Mike's majority down to literally one.
Oh yeah, no, it's Hakeem Jeffries is the Speaker of the House.
Current Speaker Jeffries. Speaking of which, if you wanted a job at the RNC, apparently you had to lie to get it. There's all these people reporting that they're applying for jobs to work at the RNC and in the field operations. And one of the things that they're being asked about was the 2020 election stolen? And if they say no, they don't get the job. That's a whole page that just says that. So, what do you make of that?
I mean, right? Isn't this the Heritage Foundation's whole thing, right? They like,
yes.
Then they missed once, and this is why this election is key, right? And I get it, their gripes with Biden, whatever you want to say. Y'all, folks are crazy. I can see this clear. They missed once, they're not going to miss again, right? They're going to gut the federal government of all the career people. You see it starting right now with their ground games in these states where these are pledges, these are pacts. This is something out of like Stalin, right? This is right. This is where it comes from, right? You go in and you say, all right, you want to work in the government? Tell me if you believe in these three things.
Right.
Like, we're there. Which is very,
but it's hurting their ground game because they're actually having trouble hiring. I mean, the RNC is, and the Trump apparatus, generally speaking, has no ground game. I mean, they are not opening field offices. They're not hiring staff. They're not getting volunteers. And all of their money is being funneled into these legal battles. So, like, maybe you just let them.
I mean, but that goes back to what I said, and I called this a couple months ago, is I feel very strong that Joe Biden can easily win this election for a few reasons, right? What happened in Alabama, who it affected? It affected rich white women, and I think they will go out and mobilize against, as they have, not just rich white women in general have mobilized against the Dobbs, right? That's there. You don't have enough money, right? And we know that these campaigns are won with money. Like, that is where it starts with, right? Money has to be funneled in.
He's broke.
I mean, and right, the SPAC that he has with friggin' Truth Social that just went public, doubt that'll cash out in time for him to get that. So, right, that piece there. And I still think there's independents in this country. I know you don't believe there's many of them. I do think there's enough of them in the 6 states that matter to go ahead and swing this election. I think they can look at what Joe Biden has done for 4 years and been like, yo, he hasn't pushed too far. He hasn't pushed us too far to, but he's not like, how progressive
Yes,
is he?
replace my burgers with tofu.
It hasn't happened.
He
It
hasn't
hasn't happened.
turned my gun into a dandelion or whatever I thought he was gonna do, and took my truck away from me with the thing and made me ride the unicorn quarry.
We're producing oil at a rate that is probably we should not be.
Not on Fox News, we're not.
Yo, it's like the economy, right? I get it. I understand that can be a touchy one. But if you ask people how their economy is doing, they're like, it's doing great. You know what?
Unless they're Republican, in which they say no, but then they spend like yes. So
yeah, I don't know. I think again, this all lines up to November being he should wipe the floor with this guy. He should. We should be worried. We should be worried.
So if you say should again, I'm gonna hit you with that bottle because I don't want to hear you.
It's different times. It is different. That is 2016 is a completely different time.
I'll tell you what the Republican Party helped me do.
Yes.
They helped me understand Hitler.
Whoa, okay.
I don't want to go too radical. I don't want to make a one-to-one comparison.
I don't know what show you think you're on, but you can't go too radical on this show.
Okay. But I don't want to go off the deep end with this, but I really have to say that, I have always marveled, if that's not the right word, always been astonished that somebody could rally an entire country to just want control or want to take over. And now I kind of feel like I'm getting a glimpse of that happening, and it's been going on for a while.
I think that is a very clear way to describe that. I mean, I even had a conversation today where somebody said they did the age-old thing. Well, you got to admire how he got all those people to follow him, and he made the trains run on time, and I'm like, no, I don't have to admire that at all.
Should frighten you.
You have to admire how he took over all those places. No, I don't. I do not have to admire that. But to Dan's point, it is instructive. We're learning. We're watching in real time, right? We talk about the 30s in Germany academically. Yes. Even for somebody like me, who is, to be very clear, my grandfather escaped, okay, just before he was going to get shipped off. His father, who was an officer in the German army in the First War, was shipped off to Auschwitz. I'm this close to not existing because of Hitler and the Nazis. I can easily not admire anything about them. But what we are watching in real time is the cult of personality and the thing that did allow somebody that awful to come to power. That these people who are following Trump are willfully subjugating themselves to a strong man and begging him, asking him to take control and to do God knows what. And the fealty of it, watching them pledge allegiance to an individual, as an American is really difficult to really understand. I mean, Tez, you're British, so you understand pledging allegiance to a king or a queen.
I do not. If I was English, I might. Right? As a British person, I do not.
but this idea of God save the queen, we don't pledge that. We pledge allegiance to the republic for which it stands, and the republic is not a person or a being or it's not alive. It's an idea. Dan, you put a very fine point on it. It is really instructive to see how these people are so willfully. I mean, we ask this question all the time, right? Growing up, we asked this question: how could these people fall for this? How could Germany fall for this? How could this secular intellectual society in Western Europe fall for this utter claptrap bullshit.
Like, if you're in a situation where you can't control the media, the next best thing is to discredit the media.
Right.
Yeah. No. I have to, I guess, in looking at like 1930s Germany, right, and where we're at now, I do think that there's still enough individuals and enough in the population that easily look at this and say, nah, we're not doing that. We hope so. I think the boogeyman that they use as well too at this point, right, would be immigrants, right? That would be the one I would assume. You would say you might say minorities in the country, but I don't even know if it's that. I think immigrants would be the boogeyman that he's been using, right? To poison the blood of our country, right? I think the way this free market works itself and how those individuals are a key component of how all this shit works is one of the reasons why I don't think we get there with it. I also think there's enough individuals who Isabel Wilkinson in her book Cass has a picture of one man while everybody is saluting Hitler, just standing there with his hands down, with one man in this big picture of him having his hands down. I think in this country, we have more people with their hands down that are not, and I can only say that because this guy didn't win in 2020. This guy didn't win in 2020. We saw, I think the structure, I think the guardrails are not great and they have been bent. I think the rails, though, are still there. I think people can control this. I think people can go out and they can vote, right? And you can look and be very critical, right, about what we're voting for right now. All this other shit, let's try this maybe in 2028. Let's try to get back to a time where we can entertain some of the foolishness that I see that's happening right now in 2024. I don't think we have time to entertain that.
There's a time for like policy debate when democracy isn't on the line, and that's fair. But Dan brought it up, and it's worth discussing. Like, are we really looking at this precipice? Are we teetering on the edge here? Because suppose he wins, there's no end here. And then, which we already know is the end of the world, and we're all dead and going to the camps and God knows what. And that's why I'm, cooking a pork shoulder in the crock pot this weekend, so I can at least have a few things.
It's not even the American spirit to talk that way. It's not that way. As someone who took an oath of allegiance to this country a couple years ago, you can say that, and let's say he wins. There's not going to be a resistance in this country? Are you?
No, we can fight the resistance, and I'll be a great general, I'm sure. And when it's all over, I'm likely to be made Secretary of State, and it's fine. You can be my undersecretary of God knows what.
The chip is hard today.
Yeah, I'll be Secretary of Chip Hop.
Okay.
Here's what I'm surprised at. I don't think anybody doesn't want a two-party system.
Two-system party.
Let me turn that around. No. Okay.
It's a bad joke, Dan, that I made a mistake one time.
One time Tez said two-system party when he meant to say two-party system.
I had too many hop slams.
It became very, very funny.
I had too many hop slams.
Gotcha. What do you have now? Guinness? What's going on there
Guinness,
now? Okay.
You should get a hop slam.
I think everyone's okay with the two-party system because, why not? Maybe because we grew up with it, right? But I think we're all okay with the two-party system, but not this one.
Right.
So what I'm really surprised at is why is it taking so long for a third party to emerge? Like a more like rational right-wing-ish party,
right of center,
growing out of the Republican Party, which in my opinion is in shambles.
It's a very good question.
It's too it's too hard. Like right now in this country, that's very difficult. Like the only way I could see this happen is if factions within because there should probably be 6 parties right in this country, right? There should probably be that. I think you also need like ranked choice voting for some of this stuff to happen as well too. I think there's a lot that, but the American democracy is, and I hate to use this, but we talked about earlier. This is a huge steamboat, and you can't to turn this steamboat. It takes a lot, right? I think, right, you look at something like the filibuster, right? Which more Democrats, every Democrat that's running currently that I know of is running on reform of that I understand. Like everyone is like, there are small things that have to happen. And I agree. I think there needs to be many parties in this. I think we've seen it before in this country. There have been times where whether it's the know nothings or like after the Civil War and like the South, there's been obviously a variety of different parties. I think that's necessary, but the only thing I could see now are groups actually kind of banding together and almost being voting blocks to kind of guide another. But one team doesn't even want to play by the rules. I don't know how you do. Like, I don't know how you change the rules when it's a two system party, and you can't get the other party to even come to the table and like genuinely come to the table and change things. I don't know how you do that.
Dan's right. Why is there not a Cheney Kinzinger party that's out here siphoning off, people who want conservative, small c conservative government, who are willing to also operate within democracy? Why are they not out there siphoning them off? And I think it is fair to say that the makeup of the Republican Party, the thing that makes people willing to submit to this conservatism, also makes them more susceptible to cult sort of behavior. Because what you see when the people who were that right of center, but within the framework of democracy people, when they break out of the party, they also break out of some of that right of center ideology. They're not interested in that anymore. It doesn't fit them anymore. It doesn't make sense to them anymore. It maybe never made sense. And if you look around the rest of the world at the right of center democracies, if you look at Rishi Sunak and the Tories in England, or you look at the Germans for all that time, while we were all casting our hopes to Angela Merkel, she's right of center.
Yeah.
Nobody in those groups would ever tolerate the abolition of national health care. If the Tories came out and said, we are going to cut the NHS, there would be riots from Manchester to Brighton in Britain. They would never stand for that. Not even for a second. If Merkel had come out and said, well, we're not going to support these worker programs that allow these people to apprentice and go work for these companies and support them, and all this socialist stuff that we're doing within Germany that made us the European dynamo that drives the economy, people would riot for that. I don't think that exists.
But those individuals came out of a treacherous war for them to get to this. All of those people, like, that is the reason that all of that stuff exists there.
Show me a right of center democracy that doesn't engage in what would in America look like socialism.
You're asking for a lot. The fact that we have the Affordable Care Act alone is kind of crazy. The fact that passed in this country is insane. Like, we just don't like, and again, I think, right, like, because we had late stage capitalism in this country, right? And I think the only thing that you really can do is have the government be a backstop to allow, right, some type of responsible capitalism where you kind of taxes have to be involved. There's a lot that needs to go. But like, you still need this current party somewhat like, they need to come to the table eventually. I don't know when that happens.
Yeah, but they need to come to the table as the Merkel version of Republicans.
Maybe they keep losing and that happens. Maybe they lose it. I think they lose again in 2024. And maybe they play this game again in 2028. Maybe they play it again. Maybe they just keep losing.
Show me a right-wing government that doesn't support national health care. Show me a right-wing government in the world that doesn't support various subsidies or market interventions and things like that that are wildly anti-capitalist or anti-market. Show me a right-wing government or a right-of-center government, not even right-wing, just right-of-center government that doesn't have a heavy hand on their country's economy. I don't think it exists.
I think, and tell me if you agree with this, I think it's ready for disruption. I don't mean revolution necessarily.
Yeah, I don't, yes.
But I think the political system here is ready for disruption. It has gone too extreme. You know, nice to have Republicans and Democrats and differences of opinion, but for some reason, it has organically gone extreme, and it's a gang mentality. You know, it's a gang mentality. I want to go this and do it more, and let's do this, and let's go further, let's go further. And you've got the gang following. So I think it's very ready for disruption. I think there's room for the good Republican Party.
Yes. I think the center of this country, which is vastly right of the rest of the world, is going to shift dramatically left. And we're going to be in a place where if you oppose national health care, you're considered a lunatic. If you oppose a minimum wage, you're considered a lunatic. If you oppose anything to do with like hedging our bets against climate change, you're considered a lunatic. I think that's where the shift is coming. We can have a right-left debate on that new middle, but that middle is moving.
Okay.
In a very similar way, I have the same views about capitalism. Capitalism, good. Extreme capitalism, bad. I think it just organically goes in that direction.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen what communism right. That story didn't win; they lost, right? But I think where we're at now, though, we might be. I can look at like plane doors being blown off, right? Like we're at a certain point in capitalism right now, where it's like maybe growth. Maybe we can halt on growth a little bit. Maybe not as much, right? We can still have growth. But maybe we don't have to try to like cut as many corners, right? That I think we should be able to get to a point where people who make a ton of money in this country because of the federal government pay that back by getting taxed. And right, like I think that's a normal thing that happens in most places. You put taxes out and you put that money into something else. And people have obviously flaunted the tax code, and right, the tax code has been there, and the way it's written is obviously there to be flaunted, and you can go around it, and there's ways to go ahead and circumvent a lot of things. But right, that has to change, right? And I think right, America, right, is for the corporation, by the corporation, like. I think it's going to have to start there. Now, that's a tough sell as well.
Brian.
Yes. I kind of agree with Dan and I said this before. This two-party system is ran its course. This back and forth. It doesn't. I think, and I've always felt like you're in the 21st century. You're in now the third decade of the 21st century, and you're still thinking like it's 1947. It doesn't make sense. And I think where you have two guys who pretty much were kids back then running for presidency, and one of them is trying to act like a former guy he quote unquote admires. It's kind of unfortunate. My father I understand him being a Republican in the sense of the fact of pulling things back, holding things together, so making sure that things are stabilized. That's what I felt like the Republican Party to him is. Once you throw in Nixon, Reaganomics, the Bushes, and this radical orange peel, all that I felt like killed whatever the GOP was before that.
Absolutely.
And like you said, it's all been about power. It's not about being the grand old party. It is just bringing the grand old all power. You're the gap, not the GOP. And I just think that it is highly unfortunate that now we know full well there are two sides of that GOP. We know that. There's the Trumpistas and the regular Republicans. And unfortunately, the good apples, so to speak, they've been rotting away. Some of them probably either left, or some of them who just felt like it's like we just morphed into this mess. And I don't think that any other party like this would survive. And if you put this anywhere else around the world, this party would have died a long time ago.
Yeah.
And I just think that the fact that someone to step up just to not only say oppose the Democrats or anything like that, but really just sort of like, hey, help balance up. I've always said the fact is like living in other countries and seeing that the initial South African election ballot where Nelson Mandela became president, you saw over 20, 30 different parties. Everyone knew Nelson Mandela was going to win, but still you had all those parties being represented. Here you're just seeing two, based on the fact even there's rules in place where you can supposed to have all parties represented to be exposed. The one thing you guys fully never forget to mention, even though we kind of started this with Miss McDonald, or McDaniel, or whatever was Ronald McDonald right now, is the media. The media in this modern day age is fully corrupting everything. It's not the sense of giving you proper news footage and understanding what's going on. It's taking over and manipulating mindsets from, Mr. Alex Jones, which will be coming up soon, and also to Trump with his own bullshit. Because the fact he manipulates everything. And him saying, in fact, is like, oh, it's fake news, just by saying those two words alone. And it's kind of unfortunate. The fact is like, dude, we have bulletproofs of facts for where you suck as an actual person, let alone as a business leader. Everyone having Candace Owens on the Breakfast Club saying is like, he's a smart businessman. The man is a fraud.
He's a rapist.
And that
he is.
He's a rapist.
It's like, come on. You believe in this dude, and you know full well, unless you forgot about Trump steaks and Trump airlines and all that stuff, the man is a fucking fraud.
He got you three, but he got folks 3 Supreme Court justices along with Mitch McConnell. He followed through on his bargain for the people who voted for him, right?
Yeah, but now he's $60 Bibles to try to pay his legal bills. Like
I do, and also too, I know that democracy is hard. It is a hard thing, but I don't think we can't necessarily, because again, IRA got passed in this same democracy somehow, some way, right? Somehow, right? And I don't think supermajorities are necessarily good for this. But at this point, when there's only one set of folks who want to govern, hey, I don't see how you can't vote Democrat.
It's not just govern. You got guys who want to work.
But
you don't get that here. You don't get MTG does not want to work. She wants to bitch, moan, and complain. My girlfriend doesn't want to work. She wants to look hot and sexy in DC.
That's Lauren Boebert.
Yeah. I mean, it's just, to me, it's like you all just want to be here, bitch, moan, and complain of why DC is not protecting you, while you end up going back and forth for whatever state you go through. You're only here for 3 months at a time.
Vote them out. Vote them out. There needs to be, again, a Democratic-controlled House, a Senate, and the presidency to govern this country at this point. It is simple and plain. When that other side decides to come and play back and they can actually put people out there that could win elections, which again, they have lost They've lost many elections. Many people are saying this. The facts that I see, like they've lost. There's many people who are saying this. Put them out with votes. I think the House obviously flips this. It's going to flip the Democrats.
I think the thing, you know, if you want a historical precedence for this, it's look at West Virginia. Okay, West Virginia had a period of time where you could not win a single election anywhere in that state unless you had a D next to your name. And it was because FDR saved West by God. And these were Roosevelt Democrats. And even though many of them behaved and voted very conservatively, they called themselves Democrats. Okay. What's going to happen is this country to move where the middle is, to shunt these Trumpistas out of here, to get people who are interested in governance, to get people who can agree on a similar plane of reality of what is up, down, left, right, or otherwise, will require that people adopt nominally, or whatever you want to call it, a party membership that is all the same, and then refactions off. Okay, West Virginia became all Democratic in name, started to become more conservative in voting, but kept the name, and eventually Jim Justice, a good example, won his last election with a D next to his name and is now a registered Republican, the governor and head coach of a certain high school girls basketball team. It is that's true. He cares about the youth. It's in West Virginia's only got 16 people. The governor also has to coach a basketball team. That's the sort of thing that has to happen. Is this country has to cast those people out and reshape itself in the image of something approaching governance, which is, I mean, look, that's the history of democracies. As Tez likes to say, this is a young country.
It's a very
you know, we don't really know from what we're doing. We'll get it right eventually. As Tez's favorite hero, Winston Churchill, liked to say, you can always count on the Americans to get it right after they've tried everything else. We're in the try everything else period.
Can we talk about baseball? Lord,
yeah.
God gracious.
Right, here's what we're going to do. We're going to take a break with Tez's favorite palate cleanser.
I'm about to get some
and then when we come back, we're going to talk about baseball, and then the rest of the show is going to be fun and funny. I promise. It's going to be great. We have a good time. We can tell you about the story that happened at lunch. It's going to be dynamite. You never know. It's going to be cool. All right. You're listening to ChipChat on Beltway Radio and beyond.
Democracy.
System, the company store, the paradigm of absolute control. And that's why we're just out here doing simple things, pointing out that we're meant to be in nature and be natural. And this is where we find the source that God made to transcend the New World Order. And that's why they want to try to keep us out of it.
I'm angry. I've had enough of these people. They're a bunch of Christian murderers scum. They're on giant death factories keeping babies alive. They're selling their body parts. What more do you need to know about these people? I go out and face these scum. They literally crawl out from under rocks. They have green looking skin and they run around screaming, we love Satan, we wanna eat babies. I have them on video. Hillary's in the creepy, weird, sick stuff, man. She sleeps in the same room with that creepy, weird woman whose mother wears a hood over her head. What the hell? That woman number one is ugly. Imagine how bad she smells, man. I'm told her and Obama just stink. Obama and Hillary both smell like sulfur.
gets close to that evil and I feel it go. We're such self-centered crap, we don't even notice hell itself rising up against us. Millions of pointed people of the very worst type, and I'm so pissed. We're gonna stab your daughter at the mall. We're gonna stab your wife, your son. We're gonna stab you with a butcher knife, and then the police chief is gonna say, we love our Somalis, we love our Muslims. Oh, they're so good, oh, they're so sweet.
I don't want to see him kissing goblins, ingratiating goblins, in bed with a goblin. I don't want to see him kissing goblins, succubus with goblins, ingratiating goblins, in bed with a goblin. I don't want to see him kissing goblins, ingratiating goblins, in bed with a goblin. I don't want to see him kissing goblins, ingratiating goblins, in bed with a goblin. Dump it. Charging into a goblin's nest, some goblin vomit and slop and blood on it, especially up to his ankles. Trump charging into a goblin's nest, some goblin vomit and slop. Goblin vomit and slop. I'm not expecting him to not get dirty slop. Kissing goblins, ingratiating goblins, succubus with goblins, in bed with a goblin. Kissing goblins, ingratiating goblins. I just want to catch him in bed with a goblin, in bed with a goblin, in bed with a goblin, in bed with a goblin. I just want to catch him in bed with a goblin, bed with a goblin, bed with a goblin, bed with a
goblin. Welcome back to Chip Chat here on Beltway Radio and Beyond. I'm your host, Chip. With me laughing along hysterically is
in bed with a goblin. Dump it.
Oh my God.
You know, you guys are laughing, but I was really creeped out.
I was the first time too. After,
right.
so you gotta kick it off. See, the only time you can play these Alex Jones videos, you have to start with leftist ass. You have to start there because that's what gets people to the Alex Jones trough first, and then you can laugh at this guy who we probably should not play any of his videos and give these views. We probably should download these and play them that are not giving him any views, because he obviously thinks Sandy Hook is a false flag operation and owes billions of dollars. And he has a documentary, I think, on Max. Someone reached out to me and told me about that because they see me laugh on the show a lot. Do you know that he has a documentary on Max?
I think it's okay to play leftist ass because that's a banger and it brings everybody out to the dance floor.
It's a banger. Yo, certified banger.
All right, so that very smart voice that you heard commenting on Alex Jones is Dan Formosa, who's a genius who regularly appears on this show, which is a little confusing since he's a genius.
Thanks, Dan.
He's well known for his engineering and design expertise, which we're going to ask him about. And he's also the keeper of all of the rules of baseball, which is a sport that Tez and I enjoy in an attempt to upset our families. Today's opening day.
My family asked me if we're going to home opener on Monday, so speak for your own.
Well, some of my family is like, when will this be over? So 161 games from now. Yeah. So today's opening day for the Orioles and most of the other teams. So we've asked Dan to come here and talk baseball. Dan, welcome officially back to Chip Chat.
Thank you. Thanks for inviting me back.
This is the latest we've ever. Thank you for, first of all, being the
thanks for hanging
out. Are people still hanging on at this time?
Again, yes. the same 4 people are listening.
Oh, great.
So,
And the Russians are doing.
Yeah, the
they were
Russians are
doing-
tuned in.
Oh, good.
All right. So, you write a book every year or every so many years with the rules of baseball. So, are there any rule changes that we need to know about that will impact the game this year?
Yeah. So of course, a lot last year. A lot happened
Yes.
last year. There's some tweaking going on this year. So, for instance, the pitch clock, which we all have come to love, maybe,
Yes.
maybe.
Yeah. I love it. Yes.
Do we love
it's
it?
re-
It's
getting
work-
it's getting reduced from 20 seconds to 18 when there's a runner on base.
Okay.
Yes. Faster.
Now, you may say, well, what good is that? You know, how much time is that going to save? 2 seconds. But that's not the point. The point is it rushes the pitcher just that much quicker when there's a guy on base. And what Major League Baseball is looking for and hoping for is more runs and more on-field action. So let's even 2023 rule changes. Let's punish the pitcher, or at least let's give him more and more and more of a disadvantage so that we can get more runners on base and we can get more action on the field, and people will be less likely to fall asleep.
Isn't it already stressful enough having somebody on base as a pitcher? Like, you know, you got to check your runner and look over and like he's dancing around and stuff.
Yeah, the pitches were getting too good.
Dad, thank you. That's where I was going to go, Dad. The pitchers are so, like, from the starters to the bullpen, these pitchers are insane what they do.
I
like,
love watching that.
Me too. I am a fan. I am definitely a fan of it. But I do think we have to chat. Like, I get the disadvantage of it, but dude, they're so good. They have to have more of a challenge.
Yeah, I mean, nobody wants to see a pitcher throw a ball to a catcher for 3 hours.
I do.
Back and you want to hit somewhere, right? You want at least something going on in the field.
I don't know. Corbin Burns threw 11 Ks today for the Orioles, and I liked watching all of those, so that was fine.
No, I agree with this. I think I saw them to keep shaving it off because I think baseball was like, I thought it was back. And when I say it was back, I feel like it was back for the masses in the sense of last year where people were like, oh, this has changed. These rules are different. I like visually, specifically watching on TV, this game feels like, again, like there's action in it. And for me, right, I'll sit there and watch a rubber match and watch these pitchers just destroy the hitters. But I do think the masses don't want to see that. And they don't want to see home runs all the time. I think we're over that as well, right? We want to see the ball hit the grass and people move and people make plays.
Yeah, there was a great play in the Yankee game today where they almost lost it because they ended up 5-4. But it had to be sliding into home and tagging this guy out. It had to be like a fraction of a second. And it went to video, of course. And it's that sort of thing that you're kind of on the edge of your seat and you're waiting to see if was he out, was he safe, what was going on. That's part of the action. It's part of the action.
And you can argue in your living room about what the call is and all that stuff. Yeah, I get it. I mean, we do that with football. The replay is like critical.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think that's obviously what Major League Baseball is going for. Let's get more runs. Let's get more on-field action. I totally appreciate what you're saying about like striking out a whole battery of players. There's a lot of skill there, and you're watching it at a certain level, and there is tension there, right? If someone's going to get a hit or not hit, and that's okay too. But it's like the same sort of tension that you see when you're watching a game of chess.
Yes.
Which is fine. You go to the park, you see a lot of people standing around the table, at least in New York City, you see a lot of people standing around the chess game, in the park, right? And that's how for very much, that's always been my analogy to baseball. Is you have to understand at least enough of it to appreciate it. You can't just come in casually and say this game is super exciting, unless you really have some introspect on what insight on on what's going on in the game. Like, what's the strategy? What are the moves? What's the probability of this versus that? All that being said, there's a lot of competition out there, like TikTok.
Right. Not for long.
Oh,
Shut up.
Okay, that's yeah. So whatever comes in place in TikTok. You know, there's a lot of attention span, diminishing of attention spans going on. But to be perfectly fair, the games have gotten longer over the years, and the pitches have gotten better, and it's not the same game it was 30 years ago.
So besides the pitch clock change, what other rule changes are we going to see this year?
Here's one that's interesting. I'm not sure a lot of people even know about this, but when a batter gets a hit, he needs to run in foul territory for the last half of that run. So he's got to cross over the foul line, and he needs to be on the foul side of the foul line for the second half of his run to first base. That was old rule. New rule is now we have a wide running path on either side of the foul line. That rule that the runner has to be on the right side of the foul line on his way to first base has been eliminated.
Is that to increase double plays?
Well, previously it was to avoid obstruction to the first baseman.
Right.
So
Right.
previously that was the case.
Now
Now it's in doing this, it's a little more fair to right-handed batters because right-handed batters have a little bit further to run than a left-handed batter. They have a little bit further to run to first base.
That's why I taught my kids to hit lefty even if they're right-handed because they're a step closer to first, and that matters. But
Did you really?
Yeah, I 100% did that. I told them that the only way to hit a baseball is this way, and then that's how they think that's the only way to hit a baseball. They don't know that it's possible to hit right-handed, and it's working out. So righties can now hug the line or even start like making the turn, and they don't have to get outside that extra line. If you're looking at a baseball diamond drawn, you'll see there's this little extra line kind of drawn with this sort of L shape, and then down on the first base side. Is that was the demarcation, right, where you're supposed to get outside of that line?
Yeah, it was. It was.
And now we don't have to use that.
Now I think the basic rule is just as long as you're in the dirt, you're good.
Okay.
Wow.
And that dirt is on either side of that foul line.
Yeah.
And I think it's something that it's one of those things that you can watch baseball for years without realizing that was a rule.
Dan, would you say, will we look back at this time, and I know there's a lot of mixed feelings with Rob Manfred, but will we look back and say that he saved baseball? Do you think?
I think it's inevitable that they had to do something because they're not thinking about this year, next year. They're thinking about, into the future, what's going to happen in the next 5, 10, or 15 years, right? They have to think long-term. And long-term, the attention span is unlikely to get any longer. And there's likely to be lots more competition for things other than baseball that you could watch.
Don't tell anybody about this show. It goes on, it's pretty short attention span show, this show. Anyway.
Yeah, including you guys. Just kidding. So, yeah, I think they had to do something. And again, what they're really doing is they're getting it back to the way the game was played decades ago, like in the 1980s. They shaved almost half an hour off the game. I think last year they shaved about 24 minutes off of the game. And that's back to 1980s averages. That's back to the 1980s numbers. Same thing with the amount of runs. Again, the pitchers are just getting too good. It's almost like the pitchers have ruining the game. I shouldn't phrase it that way, but you know what I mean?
Yes, that's
the pitches are getting. The pitches have been changing the game. I should say.
He's going to say to lower the mound.
No one's going that far. Don't be out here. Don't make our show that. No one's lowering the mound.
Yeah. Wait till next year.
I know.
Yeah, wait till they pitch uphill.
New book. All right.
Those are actually the major things. I mean, there's a reduction in the visits to the mound.
I like that.
One thing that's a change, and it's not a change in the wording of the official rules, but they are going to enforce the rule against blocking runners, fielders blocking runners, like at first base, second base. They have done it for home, and they enforce it. They've been enforcing it at home plate.
Yeah.
But they're now going to enforce it across the boards. And again, that's to let those runners get on base, get more action on the field. I mean, it also reduces injuries, right? Because blocking a runner is not that much fun, but players do it. But it's also a way to get players on base. Don't block them from reaching base if you don't have the ball. So if you're playing one of the bases and you don't have the ball, you cannot block the base, wait for the ball.
But I can catch the ball and put my knee down and block second base.
Yes.
Okay.
But you can't put your knee down and catch the ball.
Right. No, that's the base path belongs to the runner. That's the way the rule's written, right? So that should be the case.
Yeah, and also what also a rule is the base path is the path from wherever the runner is to the base. You may think the base pass is the line between first base and second base, but no, the base path is the path of the shortest distance from wherever that runner is standing to the base.
So
which means
it puts you a little bit, maybe a little more outfield of the line.
Yeah. If for whatever reason,
you're entitled to that line.
Yeah. If for whatever reason you have to deviate from that line, your base path is now a straight line from wherever you are on the field to the base
at any given time.
At any given time. Yeah. That was in effect last year, but I think there are a couple of rules like that.
Base path to avoid a tag, right?
You can. Is that what you meant? Oh no, you can't go. You can't go. You can't deviate too much from the base path. I mean, you can't like run into the outfield, and you start running around like Bugs Bunny. Actually, there are a lot of rules against what Bugs Bunny does. You can't hit the ball twice, things like that. You can't swing twice. But you can't go crazy. But if you have to avoid something on the field, if you have to avoid a fielder, or for whatever reason, the umpire, whatever reason, if you have to run off course on the field, you have now redefined your base path.
Okay. So with those rule changes in place, and
by the way, running into the outfield would be a lot more entertaining.
Yeah.
So
that's why all those Warner Brothers commercials or cartoons were so popular.
5 years from now. 5 years.
Yeah, exactly. Hold on to that thought. Let's see what happens next year. I'm sorry, I interrupted. What was it?
Okay, so with those rules in place, now that Pete Angelos is no longer alive and none of his family owns the team, how many World Series titles should the Orioles be expected to win in the next decade?
That is a really good question.
Tez says 2. I like that. That's a good start.
Did you ask ChatGPT?
Yeah, we're gonna ask Tez GPT.
You gotta just do simulation in MLB The Show and see what happens. But it's probably the Mariners win. I think though the only way I think similar to the Nationals, the only way the Orioles win the World Series is coming through the wild card.
They had a good start today.
They did have a great start today.
11 is a pretty good start.
And Rendon played today too. I didn't even know he liked baseball. He played
Rendon. He had to work. He needed a job.
He will not be playing tomorrow, and he will not be playing on Sunday or Monday.
Not after his performance today. He had 2 errors.
I know. Good Friday, Easter Monday.
Oh, that's a good excuse. All right. So the obviously the Japanese elephant in the room is that we have to talk about Ohtani. It's really, like everybody wanted this guy to be the savior of baseball, right? He's as good a pitcher as he is a hitter.
But he's Pete Rose.
He's squeaky. and every time I hear any of these stories about this stuff, all I can think of is that Charlie Hustle's not in the hall because he only ever bet on himself. He never bet against himself. He never did anything that I would consider specifically unethical. What are we going to do with this?
I heard something today that I'm not sure is actually true, but I heard somebody say that Pete Rose was quoted as saying, I wish I had an interpreter.
Hit the bell.
That may not be true. It's just something I heard.
Yeah, if you said it, that's
second
I
hand.
like that.
What are we supposed to make of this? This story stinks to high heaven. There's no way. Otani's been in the league since what, 2017? How has he not learned any English in that time? It's totally unlikely. He had to have some idea what's going on. What?
The ESPN interview, they went on and yanked him off? Like,
clearly understands. This is this fall guy Ipe is bullshit on its face, is it not? I mean, what are we
Homeboy Hall of Fame. Homeboy Hall of Fame. Ipe goes into Homeboy Hall of Fame, yo. It's a Hall of Famer, right?
Only if he beats
First
the
ballot.
because eventually he's going to write a book saying, "Okay, it was both of us," or whatever.
No. The feds are about to investigate this. If Otani is lying, which I'm at reckless speculation here, I don't know, but
I'm not saying he's not.
Shit is quacking right now. It seems like a duck. But like the feds are going to investigate this, and if he's lying, that's going to be. I don't know. That interview. He seemed kind of more forceful than I'd ever seen him. Dan, I want to hear your thoughts on this.
He was very calm in his news conference,
but it felt like he was like, I don't like this. Didn't happen. This isn't on me. I felt more. I don't know. If I would just go off the conference, I would believe him in a sense. Nothing else seems believable. But from the conference, I'd be like, he seems like he's telling the truth.
Yeah. And what do you think? Did he come across as victim? I mean, I got to say, he didn't really come across as victim, but he didn't come across as guilty. He didn't seem overly nervous. He didn't seem like he was on the line. He didn't overdo the effort to try to prove himself innocent. And it could very well be that his interpreter did what he did without his knowledge. I think the problem is if you have like several $100 million in the bank, it's sometimes you don't notice 2 or 3 or 4.
But here's I think where, how do you say this? I feel Otani is as a megastar as he is, I feels like there's no way in the world you were not aware of this stuff. Because based off of what he said at the press conference, as what I heard, I never saw the visual, but hearing him, it just felt like robotic and it felt like a PR bit. And it makes you want to think about and guess. It's like, okay, there is way more than this, because mind you, it was a federal probe, that started this, and it's just they saw his name in there, and I just feel like there's no way, if you entrusted this interpreter, who's probably been your interpreter for God knows how long, because to entrust them with your finances,
2013,
your finances for this long. I mean, come on, that just makes sense to me. I mean, it's kind of having this weird, Selena vibe to it. Is like, it feels to me like a stretch to say that he was either sort of willfully covering these debts to help a friend out, or didn't know that this was happening, or both, or that it just doesn't square. It just doesn't square that there's no way that he was like, the explanation is plausible, but it feels like a stretch.
I'm hoping he got duped. I mean, when you see things like the FTX guy or Bernie Madoff's, which are much crazier scale than this, it's conceivable. What I don't get is, where is his accountant on this?
Yeah.
It's not like he's doing his own books, and it's not like his interpreter's doing the books. Wouldn't at some point the accountant say, where did this $1 million go?
So there's this story that the banks were like a little suspicious of some of these transfers, and that they tried to call and verify, but that Ipe intercepted those calls as the interpreter and was the one who was able to put the kibosh on this. It just, look, we're all rooting for it.
It's all fishy.
We're all rooting for Ohtani to be clean here, because we want him to be this amazing phenom that's as good on both sides of the ball as anybody.
He is that. We don't want him to be that.
He is that good. Yes, but also as a legacy Dodgers fan, now that he's a Dodger, going back to my Brooklyn roots, I want him to be this. I want this Dodgers hero to deliver, the thing. I want this to be, but it doesn't feel right. Something doesn't feel right here.
All right, but remember, it didn't feel right for Kate Middleton either.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Tell me Ohtani's got cancer. I'll let him off the hook. I mean, like, that's
baseball. Right. Baseball needs him more, right, than he needs baseball, right?
Yes.
We could say that, right? Baseball.
But then how did this get out? If baseball could have lined up to protect him or prevent this from happening, I mean,
I think that's why they're this coming out now.
if it's this bad, it's got to be that they couldn't control it.
Okay, so let me ask you this.
Yeah.
Do you think, I mean, there are a couple of ways to think of this. One is that he was totally unaware. Two, he was helping his interpreter by paying off his, letting him pay off his debts, because who knows, maybe his life was in danger. And the third one is his interpreter was placing the bets for him.
The middle one. I think he was.
Yeah, I think it's possible that it's the middle one.
Based on the ESPN interview that he went on he was going to tell before they pulled that, it made it seem like it was that. And then it almost feels like Ohtani was like, oh, wait, I can't do that? He stole my money.
Right.
He stole it all.
Initially, I think it sounded like he was willing to cover for him, and then it turned out that he couldn't legally do that, and so then he had to. His lawyers probably got to him and said, "Hey, you gotta call it a theft to get out."
But that's where I feel like, again, if you're having a major press conference, you could have came fully clean about it on that day. But
you could have said your lawyers told you to say it was a theft, even though you meant to cover him. Honestly, you didn't know any better.
But that's where, like, when you start doing PR bits or having lawyers protect you and here's a prepared statement shit, to me, it makes things very speculative, and it gets to the point where it's like, okay, for all of us, we have to dig more deep about this than when you can simply say it's like, look, I just try to help a friend out. That was it, and call it a day.
The truth is coming out. The feds are going to investigate this. Every freaking investigative reporter is going to be on this beat looking for, like, everything that we want to know.
Investigative reporter.
It's going to happen. Like, that's going to happen. If it comes out that he was placing bets for him, wow. Because you've now, like, and this sounds really crazy on this, but like a scandal like this right before opening day, good for the game. Good for the game. In a weird way, I think it's good. Like, I was like, oh, baseball is back. It's got a scandal. It's got rule changes. People are watching it more last year. Hey, look, I think this is all, what is it? All media is good media.
All press is good press.
It's good press. I think this is like, people want to know about this. I hope it's not that he was betting on it, because that's really bad for his career. That might be you might. Does Manfred make a move, and is he the new Pete Rose?
You can't can Ohtani.
Oh, like, what do you mean you can't can Ohtani if he was placing bets on the game? What?
I think you can't. I think you can't not can him.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, yes. If you catch him dead to right, then you got to. But like, if it's somewhere in the gray area and you can't really nail it down one way or the other, what are you going to do?
But you think it's going to stay in the gray area? I think all this can be traced.
Yes.
Yeah. So this is the conversation I had earlier today, where I was like, look, there's two sides of every bet. Somebody's got to be placing the bet and somebody's accepting the bet. And there's so many people involved in all of this that the chance that they all keep their mouths shut is really low. And eventually somebody's going to flip and they're going to have receipts. Because one of the things that you learn about watching criminal operations, the Trump people is a good example of it, is all of them don't trust each other. And so you keep notes on or evidence on your compatriots in your enterprise, because when they eventually turn on you, you got to have some sort of protection, and your only protection is evidence. So
What do you guys know? What do you guys know about the Yakuza?
Oh, hey, look, I don't want to know anything
talk
about
them
them.
on the radio. That's what the fuck I know about them.
I don't know about anything, but yo,
How about Florida or not, huh? How about
let's
go move on to the next topic.
I wasn't hold on to the last of
No. We have a video to play for you.
I'm a little afraid Tez knows a little too much about.
He's laughing too hard. I don't know what the fuck.
Yeah, I don't know.
They're the reason the shrimp prices are up and shit.
Jesus Christ!
Damn
it, Dan. I started watching YouTube videos about a guy playing with kitchen gadgets, and all of a sudden, I'm implicated with the fucking Yakuza.
It's the way it goes.
That one out.
Oh my God.
All right, here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna play this video, which is an improbable video, and then we're gonna ask Dan to comment on the backside of this video. Brian, you got the tape? All right, go ahead and roll it.
Number was on the stomach side. I did that. What do you mean? The number down. I didn't notice.
But you didn't know that there was a number there?
Yeah, I haven't noticed all spring.
Keith. Keith.
I forget it. Don't pay attention to me. We didn't have a number down there when I played.
Yeah, you did.
We did? No.
Oh, yeah.
Really?
I've seen this.
Number on the back.
I did not know.
All right.
So apparently there are no mirrors in the Mets locker room.
Did he play on the cocaine Mets? How did he not know that? Okay, all right. You know what?
Your old strawberry overlap, but also, all right. Look.
Okay, maybe.
Credit. I couldn't tell you every uniform that I ever wore, like what it looked like or anything like that. I remember key features of it. But dude, your job, not only did you play for the Mets, but you've been the color commentary on the Mets for like 35 years.
That's where it is.
There's no fucking way.
So I dug back to the Mets uniforms and got a great picture of Yogi Berra when he was a Met in 1965. And he's got the number there.
Right.
It's been there since 1965.
It's never not been there as far as I know.
They play in Staten Island too, right?
Good question.
I'm just joking. But I mean, at that point, if they don't cut them, no.
You might believe that too. You never know what you can tell Keith Hernandez.
Hey, you know what? Hey, look, I can't wait. I am going to be a terror when the Mets come to town because I am going to have a field day with the fans because they're going to be more Mets fans in that.
What are you doing with that number on the front of your jersey? Don't you get that number on the front? Yeah.
I am going to be a maniac with every.
Hey, Kramer, put that number on the front of your shirt.
That's crazy.
I can't wait for Seinfeld to get a hold of this joke because it's so right there. It's like it's just.
So he said they didn't even remember they had a number on the front.
Didn't have a number, and then just go get Michael Richards out of whatever cave currently hiding in. And get him out there, and just 5 minutes. All I want is 5 minutes of Kramer yelling about
Jerry. I'm sure there was one time they didn't have the number on it.
He spit on me, and he didn't have the number, Jerry. No number. It's my God. It's too.
God, that's so
I'm not sure he ever did the laundry when he was in the Mets.
I didn't see this video.
Kramer did their laundry. That's how he got the shirt. There was a whole episode about that.
I didn't see that.
He knew
video.
the equipment manager. His friend Mickey, the midget, knew the guy who worked there with the Mets. It was a whole thing. Keith Hernandez spit on him and went up and to the left. It was.
You would think you'd also be proud of your number. Yeah, you're in the Mets. You got a job with the Mets. You're getting paid $1 gazillion, and look, I am number
17. Apparently.
17. Yeah, yeah. You would think that would be noticed. Although I am surprised at what people don't notice out in the world. So
it turns out I'm on a radio show. I only just found that out tonight. It's been 9 years.
All right, Chip. What's written on the blackboard behind you?
Oh God!
Don't look. Come on.
It's not a chance. I don't even look at it. It's just part of the background, which is, to your point, fair.
He doesn't see color.
You know, I feel bad. I feel bad for Ohtani. I feel bad for Keith Hernandez.
Yeah.
Which one more?
He's kind of
more for Keith. Than
more for
Ohtani.
Keith. Yes.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Just look at the damn number. Get a mirror. Look at your teammates.
That's crazy.
You don't need a mirror. Just look at the other 8 guys in the field.
I had not seen that video
He's
at all.
all that time walking around in the dugout, looking at all these guys, and he never looked below the New York across everybody. 162 games a year for however long.
Oh, he's got to get fired too, right?
No, they're not going to fire him for that.
He's
fired.
fired.
Fun of him and make it part of the bit.
He can't call the game. He doesn't even see what's going on. He doesn't even know the jerseys are going on.
Listen, if Harry Carey could do it. Hey, if you were a hot dog, would you eat yourself? I know I would.
That video just tickled me. I'm gonna watch that multiple times over because he's serious. He's not
serious.
joking.
He's very earnest about this.
He's like, no, I never had that number on me. Oh,
I don't know what you're talking about.
No. Okay.
All right, Dan, you ready to play Florida or not?
Florida or not?
Yeah.
All right, there you go. Okay. A police department has been handcuffed by Lego after the toy company asked the agency to stop adding Lego heads to cover up the faces of suspects in images it shared on social media. The police department has been using Lego heads and emojis to cover people's faces in posts on social media sites since at least 2023, but the altered photos went viral last week after the department posted a statement about its policy, prompting several news articles and later the request from Lego. Quote, "Why cover the faces?" the department wrote on March 18th in an Instagram post. It featured 5 people in a lineup, their faces covered by Lego heads with varying expressions. The post went on to reference a law that took effect in January, limiting the department's sharing of mugshots on social media. Quote, "The police department prides itself on transparency within the community, but also honors everyone's rights and protections as afforded by law, even suspects." Okay, was this in Florida or not in Florida?
Oh, is the question, did it happen
Which
somewhere?
police department? Is the police department a Florida police department or a not Florida police department? He's thinking.
Not Florida.
Not Florida. Okay,
Yeah,
show your work.
the Lego head would be too hot.
Would be too hot. That's correct. It is Southern California Police Department, Murrieta, California, which apparently, so California passed a law that said you can't show mugshots because they presume guilt, and that's not fair and whatever. Florida, of course, would never have a problem with presuming guilt on anything because it's Florida. So way to go, Dan. You figured that one out.
1 out of 1.
Yes. No, you've played several times before, but I think this is your only win, so that's good.
Oh, okay.
Well, that's fine. I mean, one way or the other.
Right.
1 out of 3. That's good, right? In baseball.
Yeah.
Look,
Yeah.
And 333.
yeah,
Yeah.
we're not mad at that.
Like,
not mad at
Williams.
Hey.
All right. All right, Dan. So it's a school night, and we know if you want to hang out with us the rest of the night, you're perfectly welcome to. But we want to give you a chance to plug all your stuff and tell everybody where they can buy your books and all that kind of thing. So go ahead.
Oh, so baseball. It's Baseball Field Guide. Tez is holding it up. It is updated. We're also, because the rules are being continually updated, we're going to keep up on the rules on our website. But yeah, it is a pretty easy to read book. You don't read it from cover to cover. You just pick it up. It's a field guide. When something happens on the field, it's
like the
illustrated.
Bible.
Yeah, it's like the Bible. It explains things in plain English. If you ever tried to read the official rules of baseball, that was the inspiration for writing this book, because the official rules read like a dysfunctional legal document. But yeah, so it's illustrated, it's explained, it's got colors, it's got shapes, it's got it's laid out so that we try to start and complete a thought on a single page. We want to reduce page flipping. Get one for when you go to the field. It is an excellent book to keep in your bathroom, because you don't have to read the whole book. You can read just a few pages at a time or one page at a time, because there's a full thought in there. But it really is designed for a quick lookup. Something happens on the field. That's the whole purpose of Field Guide. Something happens on the field. Quick, let me look that up. So yeah, it's doing great on Amazon. It's in its 4th edition, which means we've been at it for a while. It is in the 2nd printing of the 4th edition. So that's new in December. And so just if you get one, just check the back that you have the latest copy. It will say December in very, very tiny print in the back of the book. But yeah, feel free to order one.
All right. And where can they follow you on the social medias and stuff?
Well, it's really easy. Like Instagram is my name, Dan Formosa, just no space, DANFORMOSA. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm actually very reachable.
Yeah, it turns out I've just emailed you from looking at your YouTube videos, and then like here you are. So, right.
Yeah, feel free. Friend me on Facebook.
Splendidly clear and concise. So, you know.
Yes.
Yeah, also, the book is tremendous and very helpful, because I've used it to settle several arguments. So that's very useful. Thank you.
Yeah, the illustrations help. And I got to say, if you look at the illustrations in the official guide, you really can't figure them out, even though there are illustrations. So yeah, and it can make you even more of an expert than you are on baseball. So it's really written at all levels, right? It's written for someone who has never seen a baseball game, and it is written for people who think they know the rules, but there's something in there that I think they'd be surprised at, or at least they'll learn something.
There you go. I even use it to outclass my dad. That's rare. Yeah.
Yeah. So of course the other thing is baseballfieldguide.com.
Oh, well, you should have probably led with that, but yeah, okay. Baseballfieldguide.com.
Well, I thought it would be obvious.
I would thought so too. And only me and Chip like print media. That's why I have a book.
You actually read books.
This is how
I don't actually read books.
I like print media so much. I ordered a reprint because I needed something out of the New York Times Sunday edition. I ordered a reprint from them the other day.
You not own
a reprint of the New York Times?
Yeah, I ordered a reprint. I wanted Nicole Hannah-Jones. She had a cover story in the magazine.
Can't you just go through like people's garbage cans and things like
that? No one gets it delivered anymore. I'd have to go find that. I need something to read, because in the climate refugee camps, there's not going to be any internet. So I need things to read. And I'll probably be reading that and also the baseball field.
Reading Nicole Hannah-Jones, though, will get you like, apprehended in Florida or whatever.
Flogged.
Yeah.
Good luck.
Read that. All right. You want to hear the story about what happened in the cafeteria?
Oh, yeah. I don't want to miss that.
Okay. Here's what happened. I was sitting in the cafeteria eating my lunch, as I do. And there was a table full of people next to me. And I'm listening to them boisterously, what's the word? What did he call it? Informate and misinformate. Those are our new words that we learned this week. So they were misinformating each other. And what happened was,
is that the close cousin of conversating?
Yes, it's like conversating.
What was the topic? How much were you eavesdropping?
It was about food, and what was going on was there were a group of people who amongst them partially understood the food supply chain, but then were like willfully getting it wrong at the last minute. So like there was one guy who announced that he watched a lot of How It's Made and therefore understood a lot of things. And I was like, all right, this is my guy. I'm going to follow him because I watch a lot of How It's Made, and that does inform a lot of like how I understand how it goes. And then they like got onto this bit about how like lemons are not picked yellow, they're picked green, and then they make them yellow. And I'm like, okay, you're onto the right track, so on, so forth. And then they go, yeah, they lock them in a thing and pump them full of methane gas. And I was like, oh, you were so close. It's not methane, it's ethylene. And then but because they said methane, they got onto this, well, that sounds pretty toxic. We better not eat lemons. We're all going to die. And what I wanted to do was be like, no, it's ethylene gas, and that's the gas that fruit gives off as it ripens itself. But then I just listened to see the next thing that they were going to get wrong. So then they got the story of Chick-fil-A reversing course on the antibiotics thing, right? Chick-fil-A announced that they were going to no longer use chicken that was raised with antibiotics. And it turned out that was too expensive and complicated for them and their supply chain. So they reversed on it and they said, no, we're still going to use chicken that's raised with antibiotics, but we're going to be careful that they're only using antibiotics that don't cross over and harm humans. And
Free range antibiotic.
They're just anti-gay antibiotics, which is a whole different thing. So they were so close to understanding that, but then they were like, well, those antibiotics are definitely going to cross into humans, and that means that chicken is toxic. And I was like, oh, you – all right, so they're 0-2.
Yeah, if you don't cook it to a certain degree, it is toxic.
It's yeah, 0-2. So then they're like, well, I don't like meat that's pink. All right. And then they got onto this story about how, well, I went over to my mother's house and she smoked a turkey and it came out and it wasn't done because it was still pink because, you know, and I was like, oh my God, that's what smoked turkey looks like. Have you never been to a deli? And that's also just like a thing. And maybe you've never smoked anything before. And it's like, there's a ring. And the guy, the how it works guy was like, there's a ring that goes around it. You know, that part of it's really safe, even though it looks pink, and that's fine. And I was like, oh, you're going to save it. And then he's like, but the rest of it, if it's spongy, it's no good. I was like, ah.
You gave away who these folks were with that last one there.
I might have, but it's irrelevant to the story.
These are my folks.
Like, I was watching a group of people misinformate themselves. They were this close to like having a conversation, but in the midst of it, they Fox News'd, you know, and I never use that as a verb, but now I understand what to Fox News means. I saw in real time they convinced themselves of a thing that wasn't true and then swore a reaction to this thing that wasn't true. What am I supposed to make of this? I ask you as a smart person, much smarter than me, what am I supposed to make of this?
I was in the food section of Target a while ago, and I never shop food in Target, even though they have like, you know, some of them are pretty big food sections. But I was buying a snack or something. I was buying like, you know, like salt and nuts or something, because I was going on a trip. And there was a woman there with the world's most obnoxious voice, and she was with her husband.
And you're in New York or the New York area. So that's...
Yeah, I'm in the New York area. I'm in New Jersey. Yeah, but I'm in the New York area. And she's going, Phil, we have to get this. And her voice was just grating, right? Phil, let's go. We have to go buy this. Don't forget to buy this. And her voice, I felt so sorry for Phil. At one point, Phil goes to get potato chips. and she yells down the aisle, "Phil, get the one with sea salt. Sea salt has no sodium." Whenever I'm in shopping now, and I'm buying some chips or something, I think get the one with sea salt, and I say, "Let's get this one. It has no sodium." Hey, I got another.
Supposed to do with this?
What do I scream? Do I tell Phil it's okay? What do I say? Oh, it's not okay. What am I going to tell him? I don't want Phil to get oversalted. I don't want his blood pressure to go up. Phil's probably home downing the chips. Hey, I got another topic for you for another time. So I'm working with a company who is increasing the output of meat and fish grown in bioreactors. You know what that means? It's cellular agriculture. It means there is no fish or meat involved. They reproduce the cells and they produce something that looks exactly and tastes exactly like fish.
I'm super familiar with this because this is how my cousin Yuval, who's a big deal rabbi in Israel, reasoned out that lab-grown bacon would be kosher because it does not have any of the properties that are prohibited in the Torah about, it being a pig, because it never was a pig.
But it's from a cell of a pig.
Yeah, but it doesn't have cloven hooves, and it never could have cloven hooves, and therefore it's fine.
Yeah, and part of the advantage is to get there's a big story about the when you say food supply, it made me think of it like the world food supply and the population increase and the efficiency of growing meat because they have hooves. You're paying for growing the hooves. You don't eat the hooves.
Right.
Anyway, I know. I thought you guys, I don't know. I thought you guys would would be into that topic. Anyway, not tonight, but I thought you guys would harp wildly on that topic.
We will have you back to talk about that. If I could get a reactor that grows chicken in my closet, I would definitely be into that because I eat an inordinate amount of chicken. So
it may not be that far away. And there's, no chance of salmonella or things like that.
Right.
So, okay, hold that
Can't
thought.
be mad at that.
Yeah. And I don't have to look at the chicken. I can just eat it. So that's good.
And speaking of food, that's what I'm going to do now.
Okay. Well, here's what we're going to do. We're going to finish out the show, but we're going to let you take a break. Your job between now and the next time that we see you is I need more YouTube videos to watch while I eat lunch. So hurry up and get some more kitchen gadgets and do the left-handed oil test and all that stuff, which is, what we pay you for. And whatever else it is you do, I'm sure it's important.
Okay, I'll make it happen.
Okay, good.
All right, guys. It's been great. Yeah, it's been great. Thanks, Tez.
Thanks, Dan. We really appreciate it. All right, we'll let him go. All right, Tez, do you want to talk about the Supreme Court very quickly?
I mean, I guess this is simple, right? There was the hearing around the FDA and is it mifepristone?
Yep.
And I think it's a few things. I think Neil Gorsuch, and I didn't think you'd come through on this one here personally, but I think he's the one out of all of them I think he would be the one that you could lean on to get a vote, I guess, in a favor that, or something that would be favorable, right, to keeping the court outside of, I guess, the partisan hands of our Sam and Alito and neighbor Clarence. But yeah, I think there's two pieces of this. I think one, the women on the court were kind of like, hey, I think we know better about this.
ACD I was listening to her and she was like, what do you mean this is the thing? And the lawyer was like, well, and she's like, no, I don't know. Go ahead and explain that one to me.
Yeah. I there's a couple of things with this. I think another piece that I hopefully the Congress works on is like the Comstock Act has to be reformed because we can see where this could be really this has never been enforced. Has it been enforced in the last 100 years?
Well, it was initially enforced to prohibit people from mailing condoms to each other. So,
right.
It's, and then it showed up again in the 50s and 60s, you know, to stop people from mailing porn to each other. The Comstock Act is a big problem if that's what they're going to use to try to go after,
Yes.
you know, abortion, because it could, you know, it just says you can't mail anything obscene, which means therefore anything that the RNC sends out cannot be sent through the mail or FedEx or anything similar to that. I mean, that's obscene, and it offends me in such a way. You know, the Comstock Act has been basically disregarded on a First Amendment basis, that you can't really decide what is obscene and what is not obscene.
I mean, I think Gorsuch's quote here, quote, "This case seems a prime example of turning what could be a small lawsuit into a nationwide legislative assembly on an FDA rule or any other federal government action." And that, I think, is huge, right? Like, the court, as I know it, is supposed to address like a specific concern, right, that someone has brought in front of them, and which there have been times, I think you can look at Dobbs, right, where it has tried to address something for the whole nation. I think you look at keeping Trump on the ballot in Colorado and across the nation, right? They do address that, but like it kind of outstepping like the boundaries. I guess that's how I read Neil Gorsuch's response to this. Is like, hey, no, there's just one thing that you guys brought here, but you want us to decide something on a more grandiose scale, and that's really not what the Supreme Court is there for.
So that put Gorsuch and Ketanji Brown Jackson in sort of the same vein, where it's like, because of this very narrow example, you want to ban this thing from everybody, instead of saying this one person can't get access to it. But furthermore, you know, Kagan and Coney Barrett were kind of similarly on this idea of like, do you have standing here? You know, are these doctors, these 7 doctors, some of which are dentists, that this lawyer who is married to Josh Hawley, who famously ran away from his shadow, are they actually at risk of being harmed? Do they have a right that is being harmed here by the existence of this? And her argument was, well, they might be working in an emergency room where somebody who's experiencing a complication due to one of these comes in, and they have to choose to either abort the pregnancy or, you know, handle their conscience. And like, all the justices were like, in what scenario do doctors not have these things already pre-registered with the hospital and like have a workaround already set up? Because I don't know of any of that. And can you provide a single example? Kagan was like, you need a person. She said that specifically. She says, you need a person who's been harmed by this to bring standing, to show that this has had to happen. Would you agree with that? And she's like, yes. And she's like, so where's your person? And Hawley was like, well, it's theoretical. And she's like, that's not how that works. You have to like show that this has actually happened. I think that the court is going to find that the mifepristone is perfectly fine and no changes need to be made to this. And they're going to rule it based on standing, and say that there was never any standing for this case to be brought in the first place. It's not going to touch the larger issue of, if you want something to get a national ban, you can go find this one judge in this particular part of Texas named Kaczmarek and get him to rule on it, because he's the only judge who can oversee cases in that, because there's only one judge in those places, and that's how that fucking works. Judge shopping is a real problem.
That's going to stop, though. I feel like the judges have already. I heard this also. This on a Marketplace podcast, but there are judges like, they're trying to stop that, right?
They are trying to stop this, but they may be at a sort of a legal limit to what they can do, unless they like add more judges to some of these circuits, which might have to be what they've got to do. I don't know. Breaking news.
Breaking news.
Brian wants to go home.
Yeah. And so is North Carolina.
Oh,
yes.
Wow.
They lost 89-87.
Brackets busted.
Everybody's fucked. I've got a good chance. I knew I should have picked Izzo because I could have bet on that and I would have covered it up. It would have been fine.
I missed that one too. I don't know why I didn't bet on Izzo.
I agonized over it. Well, no, it wasn't this game. That was last game. But
I didn't bet him on the first game.
But I could have bet Sparty to beat UNC and got that wrong on Sunday and still been okay today, is what you're saying. Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
But Bama moves on.
Christ. It's the last thing we need. Alabama good at 2 sports at once. What do we even have in Alabama for?
Stop it.
Huntsville? I mean, they have space stuff there, I guess.
Yeah. Didn't the Rocket come out of Alabama?
Yeah, we could put Huntsville, like move Huntsville back into Tennessee and then call it a day. Just give Alabama back to whoever would take it. Will anybody take it? I don't know. We got another black congressional district, so maybe we'll keep it.
Yes, we should keep it.
It's going to make Speaker
There's
Jeffrey.
not one in South Carolina.
Speaking of various North Carolinas, it turns out there's a moonshine still under the North Wilkesboro Speedway, which is hosting the NASCAR All-Star race this year. So, shocking. Wouldn't have bet on that.
Not at all. I wouldn't bet on there was an All-Star game for NASCAR.
Oh, that's funny.
I did not know that.
Yeah, I'm shocked that a sport that is based on moonshiners would have a still under one of the stadiums where they race cars for moonshine.
That's how they used to finance it.
Not just finance it. NASCAR started about bootleggers, competing of whose car was faster because they used to use these fast cars to outrun the federal. Yeah. And that's where NASCAR was born. So if it weren't for moonshine, we wouldn't have Dale Senior or Junior or Jeff Gordon or any of that stuff, and we wouldn't have this dumb "Let's Go Brandon" stuff. So hooray for moonshine! Dark Brandon salutes you. All right, you hear our new theme song, Tez?
Yeah, I did hear our new theme song.
Well, you can hear it playing, which means we've come to the end of the show.
The robots are taking over.
That's right. Thanks to Dan for being such a great guest and explaining all that stuff to us. Go get his book, by the way, wherever the camera is. Yes, over there.
Oh.
Thanks to our radio partners, Resistor, Pro Sister, and Transistor. Thanks to it's a Transistor radio joke. Thanks to NOTN for keeping us on for another week, maybe. Don't know. Thanks to our home on the interwebs, coplaymedia.com. And thanks, as always, to our family here at Beltway Radio for making us sound as smooth as current speaker Jeffrey's smile when he looks at Mike Johnson. All right. Where can everybody get you on the socials and stuff?
You can find me with baseball commentary on X, formerly known as Twitter. You can find me on Instagram at Ketchum Courtney. And you can always find me being a flaming liberal on Blue Sky at DC Cortez.
All right, and you can find me and the show on the Twitter at ChipChatRR. You can find us on Facebook or Instagram at RibChipChat. Don't forget to go look for Dan at Dan Formosa on all the things, all one word. And you can find Brian, doing things all over the place. Don't forget to tune into No Filter Sports. It's sometimes on this network. And you can, of course, find us every Thursday night here on Beltway Radio and beyond. I'm Chip. That's Tez. That's Brian. That was Dan. You've been listening to Chip Chat on Beltway Radio and beyond.
Sweeps.
And we're your host. I hope you enjoy what we promote. Chip Chat Radio. We got so much, so give you the news in case you didn't know. Keep the public well informed of the topic. Sometimes the news today is hard to process. That's what